And our hangout is live on air. So this is DCLanders group discussion of Outlander Season 2. We're discussing episode 2 tonight, not in Scotland anymore. You can go back and watch last week's discussion on the YouTube channel. It's saved. It is saved. I went back and looked at it. We're also streaming in the Facebook group feed, and that is a closed group, so it's only the members of the group who can see that. This is basically just so that people who aren't in the Google Hangout can actually hear the discussion between those of us who are in the Google Hangout. You just can't see the other people. So I can see Phyllis, and if anybody else is able to pop in, I'll be able to see them, and they can see me. So anyway, we will go ahead. We'll try and keep this spoiler-free. Or I think I want to do spoiler-free throughout the whole main part of the discussion, and then we can have a break. And then let people who don't want spoilers drop off, and then we can spoil like crazy.
Oh.
As far as, stuff from the book that we're waiting to see and things that we think they're going to skip, and if they're going to do certain things or not do certain things. But we'll do all of that at the end.
Okay.
Once we're done with the whole discussion. I think it'll give us a chance to not have to censor ourselves for the whole thing, because that would make me crazy.
It does.
Not to be able to talk, other Outlander fans who've read the books and know the books. So anyway, we started. Well, the big thing, I don't know, did you happen to see on Twitter where Meryl Davis came out and stated that they got the dates wrong?
You mean that the 45 was not the right date?
It's supposed to be 1744.
Okay. I saw something about they had asked to have the dates changed, and I haven't checked the app stream if it's changed or not. I didn't look or didn't know.
Stream still says 1745 because I've watched it a number of times, and I think what I heard somebody say that she said, I haven't gone back and found the conversation yet, is that they can change it for
broadcast,
the Stars broadcast.
Okay.
They can't change it for the streaming. However, it will be changed for the DVDs and for rebroadcast on Stars.
Okay. So we are in 1740.
We are in 1744.
44. I'm sorry. We are in 44.
Yeah, but
that's what it says. That's
one of those things when I was starting to think about the timeline. The whole timeline has been moved up like 6 months or so because
right.
In our books, this is not a huge spoiler because it's from Outlander. In the book of Outlander, Claire went through the stones at Beltane, which I think is April, May-ish.
Yes.
Right? End of April, beginning of May?
Spring, yeah. Uh-huh.
In the series and the TV show, she goes through at Samhain. Samhain, yeah. Which is Halloween. So that's October, end of October.
End of October.
So they've in the TV show, they've moved up that whole timeline 6 months. So she ended up in Scotland in October 1743.
Right.
So we were already pushed forward 6 months from what those of us who are book readers were expecting.
Right.
So when you think about the time, it had to have been 1744 before like the events of Wentworth.
Right.
Because Rent, they were out on the road in Rent for, she said, weeks.
Yeah, and then they mentioned being back at Leoch for Christmas. So they do make it into the new year before they go in through the court, the witch trial and all that. They're already in 44. Early, very early 44.
Yeah, except there's no snow on the ground, so it's spring-ish, as spring-ish as it gets in Scotland.
Pretty intense trees, yes.
Yeah.
Green trees.
So yeah, the end of season 1 had to have been mid-1744. We're talking maybe May, June-ish.
I think it would have been that late. I didn't even think it was that late. I thought it might have been like March or April.
They're really, that's what's so strange about them giving us those dates in season 2 is that they gave us no dates in season 1.
Yeah, that's true. So we have to sort that out.
So yeah, we're trying to figure out,
They gave us a date on a letter. That's how we got where she was in.
We knew it was 1743. That's how much what we knew, but I can't remember what the actual date was on that letter. I'd have to go back and watch that episode. That was Castle Leoch episode.
Yeah, that was Column's office.
Yeah, in Column's study.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, we're in 1744.
Yeah, in France.
In France. Claire is 4-ish, 5-ish months pregnant.
No. She that pregnant? Because she doesn't show.
She doesn't show, but she has to be because of the timeline they've given us.
Oh.
You know, she said she was pregnant when they got on that ship.
Right, and it only took a few days to come across.
They were at Le Havre for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. They were there for 3 weeks.
They were at Le Havre for 3 weeks. And in her VO and her voiceover at the beginning of this episode, she says they've been in Paris for 3 months.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, she's at least
4 and a half months pregnant.
Okay. She's not showing. They're not putting it obvious, so, okay.
But there were a couple scenes that I was thinking, a couple of outfits they had her in, I thought, oh, well, maybe.
Yeah.
But then others, it was like, oh, no. So anyway, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
We had the credits to begin with. We didn't have a cold open. We had the credits, right? We started right with the credits.
Well, yeah. We did that previously, and then right with the credits.
And then we saw the title card was the dressing of Louise in that frou-frou bow gown.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, that's the whole thing in... Hey, Jerry! She's in the Facebook thread, so I would love to have you join us when you get home. That would be fantastic. Right now, Phyllis and I are talking. So, yeah, I love that whole thing and that dress and just kind of set the stage to let us know...
Quite elaborate.
Where we were going to be, you know, that we are in high society,
right?
France.
Did they show? I'm trying to remember from season 1. Did they show a dressing of Claire or something in a title card to show how simple their clothing was compared? I don't know. I mean, I know that we see it.
Not in the title card, but there was the dressing of her that she did in the Castle Leoc episode with Mrs. Fitz.
Right. So
maybe they stripped her down and then dressed her back.
So that's kind of a nice comparison, I guess, of
episode 2 of both seasons.
Right. So that's kind of nice. Yeah. Ooh, good point. 2 or 3, yeah, episode 2, yeah. So
yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that was, you know, I'm liking these title cards are a little more dynamic this year. At least the first 2 have been a little more dynamic than last year. Some of those real stills.
Yeah.
This could have been a photograph, you know.
Yeah. So that must be clearly they're incorporating those into the feel of the show. I mean, they really are. They really are taking the time to consider those. And
yeah. And Jerry's just asking me if we're talking about the Dior. We haven't gotten to the Dior yet. We're just still talking about the title card. So, so yeah, and then we kind of open up with that scene, the soft focus. Everybody, I missed the soft focus. You know, I wasn't as observant about the fact that whole opening scene between Jamie and Claire was soft focus. And the people who noticed that, they knew it was a dream sequence because there were no scars on Jamie's back. And his left hand had no, you know, nothing was wrong with it.
Oh, wow. Some people just I guess, and I thought I watched it closely. I did not notice that.
And you wouldn't believe how many times I've watched it and didn't notice it until after I heard that in one of the podcasts.
That's interesting. Okay.
I was like, oh.
So that would make sense because in your dreams, stuff's different, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
see yourself differently.
Yeah. Who's going to put all their scars on themselves in their, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I know I posted in the thread about, or whichever one it was, the discussion post, that the opening scene was super jarring for me. But that was in comparison to one that happens later in the show that I liked better as far as I thought it was more effective. But
yeah,
I've seen, and I keep hearing, have you seen places where there have been lots of negative comments about this episode?
I only posted one other place, and I think and I only post in the book section too. So I like to read what non-book readers have to say about it because they're getting it clean. I mean, they're not even kind of extrapolating anything out of any of this. But I'm not really I think, sadly, I think there's been some negative about the costuming. in some ways, but for the most part, most people are liking that I'm seeing. They're liking it, but they're coming from positive places anyway. I think on the show.
I like it. I evidently am not in enough different areas as far to find the negativity. I mean, I'm a member of several different Facebook groups, but I'm not religious in them as far as getting in there and all the comments and the posts and the reviews I've seen, because I posted the New York Times review I thought was wonderful.
Yeah, I think reviews, the people that are doing it professionally, I think they're giving it good reviews. I don't think there's really anybody overcritical about it out there in the blog verse. As far as people that are professionally doing their thoughts, as far as fan groups, yeah, I'm not seeing anything overly negative. I mean, I probably am one of the more picky because I keep picking stuff out because I can't totally love everything. I have to say, come on, be critical about something.
Right, because you don't want to be, as they call it in baseball terms, you don't want to be a homer.
Yeah.
You want to be.
There's something.
Trying to be a little bit, a little bit unbiased, or a little bit unbiased.
Or thinking about maybe how stuff is presented.
Yeah, and clear-eyed about what you're seeing, not just accepting everything that everything they do is wonderful. Because obviously last season I had some issues with some stuff.
Yeah, and I think there are issues here. I mean, I know I made the comment about the red dress, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And I know Jerry has a lot to say about the other dress. She needs to be in here.
I know. She's on her way home. She said she's on her way home and she'd pop in.
So, but I mean, I don't ever want to say that the costuming is bad because it absolutely is not. It's beautiful. I don't know. Maybe some choices. I thought that opening scene and the way it played out, though, I thought that was a good, and people were critical because I thought it was a good expression of Jamie's nightmares. Oh my God, what a nightmare! He's having what he thinks is a nice, sexy dream, and man, it's not. So,
and then the monster shows up.
Yeah, the monster's there. So, and then he can't sleep because of it. So that was I thought that was a real good way to emphasize that once he's awoke from these nightmares, he can't sleep. He
doesn't want to sleep because
he doesn't want to go back to the nightmares. Yeah.
I did, after I watched it a couple different times, I did, my opinion was kind of softened because I did like the fact that he couldn't kill Randall.
Right.
No matter how many times he stabbed the man, he would not die.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because he kept.
So it was that subtle psychological. Hey, Melissa, she's in the Facebook feed.
Okay.
We're wondering if you were going to make it over to our actual discussion. I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's a good point because he cannot kill the guy in his dreams.
Yeah, like I said, no matter how many times he stabs him, no matter how much blood there is.
Yeah.
Once he's done, the man is still alive and still living, within his psyche. So I actually thought it was a good psychological view of, what's going on inside Jamie's head, because Jamie's not a talker.
Right.
He's not a complainer. He's not a talker or a complainer. So
there's no way to talk this out and get it off his chest or anything like that.
Yeah, there is no therapy.
Right.
At this time. It's in the way he was brought up and feels. It's just a matter of you put it away and you move on.
Right. You have to put it away. You're right. Stick it in a box or something. Your
body is healing and almost healed, so move on and deal with life.
Right.
But, your mind that's perfect example of your mind being so much stronger and your subconscious being so strong, no matter how strong-minded a person is, how much, they feel like they're in control consciously, that subconscious is in there working, and there are things in there that, will come out at the most inopportune, worst times.
Right, and when you're sleeping, of course, that's when everything's supposed to get, we all know that. All your things get released when you're sleeping, so you have no control.
And you're at your most vulnerable.
Right, right. So, no, I thought that was a well done thing. I mean, not what I was expecting, definitely, but I think I said it went from, oh, look at this to, my God, The Walking Dead or something. Just because of the blood. Everybody's always covered in blood.
So yeah, and then, wakes up and Claire's right there with him. And I wasn't until the second time I watched it that I saw him actually tense when she came up over his shoulder.
Yeah.
That whole tensing and.
Yeah.
So.
He's still not sure where he's at, maybe. Or
yeah, just.
Caught up in the horror that he was having. So.
Yeah, so well done.
Yeah. No, I thought it was good too. I don't know what kind of critiques are out there. Again, I have to.
Yeah, well, and I only listened to a couple of different podcasts, one of which I loved this week because they loved, most of the things that I loved, and the other one I wasn't so thrilled with because one of the people in the podcast is making me crazy right now.
Oh.
But he's a non-book reader.
Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, when you talk to the non-book readers, they are probably more jarred by things because they're not expecting it. They don't know where it's going. They don't know what it means, maybe, and they haven't gotten the whole connection that us book readers, sadly, we take it down 3 books from now and go, okay.
Oh, look, they're pulling this in from such and such. It's like, oh wow,
they did this, so
yeah.
Where this comes from.
It's like they are thinking. They're looking ahead and they've read the other books and they're pulling in stuff and
or they're laying the groundwork for something else that
right.
Never ever, it's not going to be answered for 5 seasons from now or something. So, yeah. So you just have to absorb it and kind of see it like the characters are seeing it too, because they don't know. They have no clue.
Yeah.
Where it's going to go or what all this is going to lead to. So, for the most part.
Yeah. So then the next morning, that's when we see Claire in the Dior.
Right, right. That was interesting.
That's so gorgeous. I mean, that bar suit is so amazing. So we won't talk about the fashion. Hopefully Jerry will be able to get in here with us. Yeah. But we can talk about Claire moving through, and the set. Oh my God, that curving staircase.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Coming down. Oh my God. And that, and have you watched the Emmy or the Outlander TV Emmy thing?
No.
There is a 29-minute or an hour, it may be closer to an hour, where they have Bear, Gary Steele, Terry, Ron, and then Sam, Kat, and Tobias on a panel.
Oh, okay.
Where Terry actually gets to show footage and talk about the costuming and the design and why she chose what decisions they made.
Oh, okay.
What they were having to do, why there's so much painted fabric, because they couldn't embroider everything they needed to embroider. There was just too much of it.
Oh my God.
It's a really good, I think I posted the link to it in the Facebook group.
It's probably in there. Like I said, I don't obsess about I like a few of the interviews. I think they're fun. So I'll look for that one. That
one's really interesting because then they also talked, and she, like I said, she showed actual footage of those costumes, the different costumes and stuff like that. But they also had Gary Steele, who is the set designer.
Oh, okay.
And he talked about the decisions they made on what sets to build.
Okay.
And they showed us the practical set. That staircase is a practical set.
Oh, wow, really?
Hey, Melissa. Hey, Jerry.
Yay! Yay! Everybody's here.
Oh, I don't have Jerry's voice.
Oh, no voice.
I have no sound from Jerry. I haven't heard anything from Melissa either.
Oh, there goes Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa may be going to go out and try and come back in, see if her sound will come back.
Oh, she probably, she always has to move rooms or something.
Still have nothing from Jerry. Hey, Melissa.
Hey.
Hey, we got sound from Melissa. Sorry.
Yay!
We still don't have any sound from Jerry. I'm hoping we can get her sound to pop in.
There she is.
No, still nothing, Jerry. I don't know. Maybe, did you put in a headset? Maybe try a headset, 'cause I think that's what we had to do last time, is you had to put a headset on or something. So, but anyway, just to let you know, we are just kind of talking about the very opening, not the opening scene. We talked about that scene between Jamie and Claire being soft focus and being a dream sequence and all that kind of stuff. So we were just moving into the sets and the fact that staircase is a practical set. That apartment is a practical set, and even the courtyard is a set.
Oh, there. Wow. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can now.
That's really strange. That's really strange. Yep. So I have to have headset on the whole time.
I don't know. Something with your mic, maybe.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Could be because of the fact that my buzzer isn't working too. So I just haven't wanted to pay the $100 deductible to get a new phone.
So yeah, the practical sets are gorgeous. And the fact I was just saying that I posted a link to that TV, that Emmy panel with the whole creative team, and then Sam Catton and Tobias.
Right.
And that Gary Steele was on showing this video and the construction of the sets and the fact that whole apartment, Jared's house, is a practical set. And they've actually redressed a lot of that for different areas that we've been in. I think the dining, one of those rooms is redressed as the apothecary. I think one of them is redressed as, yeah. It's what I said, it's super interesting. I mean, when you get a chance, run back and watch that and look at that, because it's amazing. And that courtyard where the carriage comes out is redressed and set as the square that she walks through when she's going to the apothecary.
Oh, be darned.
Oh, wow. Wow.
This is their stuff in Scotland, then. This is their site in Scotland that they're working with?
This is
that's Prague. Isn't that Prague?
The exteriors are in Prague, but this that courtyard is a practical set on their soundstage.
On their soundstage, yeah.
The entire apartment and those rooms is a huge practical set that they built. That staircase, they built that entire curved staircase.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So
they must have a hell of a budget.
That's why I'm thinking there's a renewal announcement coming up, because they put way too much freaking money.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't announced it yet, because they might as well. They know they're going to get it.
Well, of course they are.
Yeah. I keep thinking, I have said several times now, I really feel like season 3, that book 3 needs to be 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's a big one. Because
there are 2 definite stories in book 3. Right. So, which we will talk about. I was telling Phyllis, I want to do no spoilers in this section of it, and then when we get to the finish of the episode, we can take a little break or wave our hands and say there will be spoilers after this. Anybody who doesn't want spoilers, go away.
Okay.
And then we can talk spoilers.
Then we can talk the implications of some of this.
Yeah. So anyway, we were just getting ready to talk about Claire coming down that staircase in that Dior.
The Dior, yeah. That's I think it was my favorite dress of the whole episode. The red dress was gorgeous. I'm laughing at a lot of the things I'm reading too. People are going, "Why was it so short? Just to show off the shoes?" And I'm like, "No, you idiots! They wore their panniers and those dresses above their shoes, and half the time was so they didn't step in shit."
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I also saw Terry comment about the fact that, the dress was a little bit short, but the reason it looked that short was because the way it was shot from down below. And she said she died 1,000 deaths when she realized they were shooting that dress from down below, because it was going to make it look even shorter.
Yeah, but those dresses were cut. They had those dresses cut above their shoe. And they would then, at that period, sometimes they would have the detachable train that would add the length to it in the back. I remember this from costume history, Costume 101, and it did. They had that detachable train in the back, so they could put that on once they got into the halls. Yeah, but then we talked again, too. They had the patents, too, that they wore on their shoes that elevated them up off in the mud and the puddles, too. I was wondering if we were going to see Claire in a pair of those, So the Dior, like we talked to Angie, that's still, even after reading Terry's blog and going through the whole thing where she saw that, and that look in writing habits and things like that, it still bugs me that dress was from season spring and summer of Dior, 2 years after Claire supposedly went back in time, so that just bothers me.
Yeah, it actually would have been out when she went back in 48.
Yep, it would have been out when she went back in 48. Yep.
But could I maybe suggest, and I don't know anything about fashion, was fashion in that time period already leading to that style?
No.
Where she might have come up with it herself? No.
Not at all. That was that year when that dress came out. Women had just gone through the war.
Yeah.
And at that period, they had gotten away from corsets, they had gotten away from crinolines, they had gotten very basic. And this Dior, when Dior launched that dress in 1947, that was called the new look, and it created an entire rage in fashion. There was nothing like it prior.
Okay, so there was nothing that she could have maybe.
Nope.
I mean,
nothing.
I'm thinking maybe a military look or something that she might have.
Nope.
Oh, well.
Because the women's stuff, I was reading Terry's blog, said the women's fashions at that point were very masculine. They were broad shoulders with shoulder pads. They were wearing pants for the first time because they'd gone into the workforce.
Narrow skirts. Think the Andrews sisters. You think of the Andrews sisters when you think of what the fashion was up until that dress came. And that dress brought back into fashion the dresses that led into the 50s with the tiny waists and the belted waists and the full skirts and everything else. When we went back to that look, when women went back to being not Rosie the Riveter, but very, very feminine.
Right.
You know, so they went back to heels instead of wedges and things. And I just bring this up from the years of working in the theater costume shop. So,
well, I'm okay with hand waving a little bit and thinking, she saw the design for a riding habit, but didn't like all the frilly embellishment crap on it, so she stripped all the embellishments off of it. And she didn't want bright jewel colors because they'd just come from Scotland, so she was easing herself back into wearing color, and she did the drabber, greens and grays or greens and browns.
Right.
Well, she was that way anyway in her modern life. She wasn't wearing bright colors. I mean, that white dress she had on at the first show was probably the lightest thing she'd worn, or the blue coat, but she was in the darker colors. So.
I mean, the fabric and the construction of it were just perfect.
Oh, gorgeous.
It was just gorgeous. I can imagine that they did not let her sit. She probably had a leaning board during the day when they had that costume on her, because if she sat down, it would take them an hour to steam all the wrinkles out of that silk. It would have been horrible. But it's still, to me, it's like a blatant copy. It really is. It's a blatant copy. It's a nice homage to Dior, to the House of Dior, but it's still just kind of like, as much as it is my favorite dress, it's still kind of like, it's one of my nitpicky little tiny peeves that I have.
Well, I think Terry said, we did a copy. We didn't do our own thing to it. We copied it, except for the hat. The hat, she said, I wanted the black hat rather than the
straw boater, the inverted straw, which, they did show with the black hat, the Met, the copy of the dress at the Met, they had the black hat with the copy at the Met, although the original was with the inverted straw. The kind of set that had the crown inside and then poof, came out like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean that was probably my favorite costume in town. It was just so purely classic and elegant and just. Oh.
I'd wear it now. I would. I'd wear it now, length and all.
And the gloves, didn't she have soft cream-colored kid leather gloves?
Yep. Yep.
Because I remember seeing the gloves in something. When I was watching.
Yep. That's
coming down. I mean, her coming down the stairs with that and coming out that little Juliet balcony and with the maid chasing her down. The maid chasing her down, saying, "Please, why do you make your own bed? Why do you fold your own clothes?"
Yeah, that was funny.
That was funny.
Yeah.
It was kind of it's a little bit spoilerish from the book, but it's a kind of an homage to the fact that in the book, Claire says she came to an understanding with the housekeeper, that the housekeeper knew what the hell she was doing and Claire did not.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of that, bringing that in.
Well, she does say that in the story, that thank goodness Jared hired a good staff. They handle it. Not much I got to do.
Trustworthy.
Yeah.
So trustworthy. I was a little thinking yeah, they're trustworthy as far as you being Jacobites, but you guys are working against the Jacobites, so I'm not sure that staff is going to be loyal to Jared.
Right.
So, and they were talking about that stuff with staff walking in and out of the rooms, you know, when they were talking about Charlie and all that. I swear to God, there were people walking in and out of the rooms. As much as she picks up after herself, she got very good at ignoring staff coming in and out of the rooms.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I mean, that's her getting into the carriage and going through the streets of Paris, and I kind of like that little voiceover there because I like the fact that we're told people, don't look for the Eiffel Tower. It hasn't been built yet.
Oh, that's a little history of Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and reminding people of the, you know, the terror that's coming in 40 years. The fact that she had been there 200 years, you know, in the future, and it was a different era. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And then just walking through that little square there and finding the lighting was so dark I could never read the signs. I could kind of read apothecary, but I could never read the other sign in those arches before she walked into the shop. So it must have said Raymond's apothecary or something up there because I couldn't read the first sign because it was so dark in the lighting on that. But
yeah, it's under like a balcony or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It steps into an area under an overhang of some kind, whether it's a balcony for upstairs or
I don't know. It's kind of just those kind of recessed doors set in there.
So my question about the pipe running down the wall, then it's not like they actually used a real place. So it was there for a reason. Because I mean, now you see in Europe and in England, you see all that outside plumbing. So I thought, did they not cover up a stupid freaking soil pipe or something? That wouldn't have existed.
I'm pretty sure that's a set they built.
Yeah. So it was there for a reason. It wasn't really just happened to be there because that's what was on a building they used. So.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know, did they have pipes that would drain rainwater off of
water? Maybe rainwater.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, they had ceramic pipes that they would use, you know, that would sometimes come down from the tile roofs and things like that. It definitely wasn't any type of plumbing or anything like that because that was,
to me it just looked like one of those black PVC bathroom pipes that are on the outside of buildings, old buildings in Europe and England.
I don't know. I'll have to go back because I've missed it every time. I haven't specifically.
Yeah, and I have to look at it again too. I think I only noticed it the last time, and I haven't watched it since. So.
Yeah. But she walks into that shop, and that shop, I've seen tons of people talk about it looking like Ollivanders.
It did. I did. I thought about that too. I said, this looks like it's right out of Harry Potter. You know.
So, but I love that. I love all the little nooks and crannies in that shop, and I love the assistant Delphine. And then I loved Master Raymond. I mean, I love Dominique Pignon in this part. I think he's fantastic.
He looks like a little frog.
Exactly. He looks exactly how he was described in the book. I think it's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That they were able to get that and switching to English so we didn't have to watch subtitles. Thank you very much.
Yes. That's been my nitpick with it. I have to go back and rewind because my southern mind is reading 5 times slower than what they're throwing those subtitles up there.
But they are subtitling the Gaelic too. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I've gotten so used to reading closed caption with my mom that the subtitles go by just like the closed captioning does. So, and at least they're spelled correctly.
Yeah, closed captioning can be really funny.
Oh, yeah. Some of the words that come out, you go, now, wait a minute, can they actually put that on TV?
So just to remind you girls that we had that little discussion before you guys came in that Meryl Davis has said that they made the mistake of the date at the beginning.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I saw that.
It is 1744 here in Paris. It is not 1725.
I can't believe that they got all the way to a broadcast and nobody caught that.
I know.
What?
Hey.
It's a big, huge mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge thing. I find that hard to believe that it was that glaringly obvious. Well, or maybe they didn't think about it until people started saying, "Hey, wait a minute."
Well, I listened to, I think it was the Scott and Sassenach podcast, where they talked about, that's called a chyron. And they said those chyrons can be added at the very last minute. I mean, after the episode is locked, you can go back and add those chyrons.
Okay.
So they said maybe it was something that got added after they locked the episode and after the premiere, but still, I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe that it wasn't seen, that that Ron didn't see it down there, that Meryl didn't see it down there, that they have continuity people on the show, that's what they're paid for.
Yeah, but typos happen.
I know, but anyway, so we are just to bring us back. We're back. We're in Paris in 1744.
Yeah.
Thank God, because they were, the way they had pushed things forward. This was supposed to be in 1745. It would have been like June or July 1745, which means they were going to have to be back in Scotland in a month.
Yeah.
Because Preston Pans is in September of 1745.
Right.
So anyway, but it's 1744, so we got some time. I loved Raymond. I love how they brought in the fact, gave us a lot of information in there, and there'll be there some non-book readers who don't realize how much information we got in there, because we got that Raymond and the Count know each other, that they talk, and that Raymond considers him an enemy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a lot of information that I don't remember us getting that early in the book. But making, Claire letting him know that, she is who she is, or she's got some skills and some knowledge, kind of cemented that fast friendship right there. And, so once again, Claire looking for, and somebody mentioned that he is season 2's Gayless Duncan.
Yeah.
Or Claire.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can too.
A friend for her that she has something in common with, that, although I don't know that she ever fully trusted Gayless.
No, not until the end, I don't think. Not until that whole thing when she realized that she was from the future.
Yeah, well, and they didn't trust each other, because Gayless didn't trust her either.
Nope.
So.
No.
But I love that whole scene with Master Raymond in there.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to see their relationship develop. I hope they don't give it short shrift,
Yeah, I'm hoping there's enough development that when we get later in this season that it doesn't seem totally out of left field.
Yeah, and forced. Yeah. There's got to be some communication.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah. Well, thinking when we get to the spoiler zone, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So then we move straight to Murtaugh and Jamie on the garden grounds, or wherever they are out on a park. Practicing the sword.
Yeah.
I loved this whole scene. I loved Murtaugh.
Asses and armpits, asses and armpits. That was all I kept saying. Asses and armpits.
Nothing to cut their balls off. I'm just like, oh my God, I kind of love Murtaugh.
Yeah, I love him too.
And
he doesn't say much, but when he says it.
Yeah, well, and also letting us know where Jamie is in his recovery, his physical recovery.
Yeah.
They showed us that great brace that Terry said they had to go find the sexiest hand brace they could, or they had to make the sexiest hand brace they could. For him. Again, that's in that Outlander Emmy panel.
Okay.
When she was talking about costumes and stuff.
Yeah, but he's still weak, so he's trying to rebuild his strength up in his left hand and arm. And
yeah, still can't figure out how he kept that left pec. So, From the first episode where he took the shirt off for Jared, and that those pecs and that chest was just.
Yeah,
Nice and developed for somebody who was sick in bed for 2 days on the ship, and then.
And not been using that arm for a while,
Yeah.
Yeah. No atrophy there. No.
No, whatever.
No.
I go with it.
He's been doing one-arm push-ups over something.
They obviously somehow managed to equally keep both sides,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Like I said, I can hand wave that away.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So and then people were talking about Murtaugh's extreme practicality and pragmatism. Let's just kill the guy and then we can go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Right.
would have really worked.
Yeah.
It would have solved the problem.
Except, as Jamie said, that could just make James all the more determined.
Yeah.
To try and reclaim the throne, and would bring James more into that mix rather than sending Charles as his representative and regent.
Yeah. Is it established that James is in on this? I mean, that he actually is behind it, or is it more of a case of Charlie has just gone ahead and done it because he thinks it needs to be done?
We can't determine that from the show.
Yeah. So.
Although he does say his father. Charlie. Well, in a scene that's coming up, Charles does keep referring to his father.
Right. That's true.
But I'm hoping to get this character and some of the stuff surrounding him fleshed a little more in upcoming episodes. But anyway, we get
Charles.
Yeah. There's some stuff surrounding him that stuff we can talk about in the spoiler zone. Because it's stuff I'm wondering about.
So Murtaugh suggests we just assassinate the guy and get done.
And Jamie comes back and says, "I'm not an assassin." That's Jamie's moral compass and code coming back and saying, I'm not an assassin. That's not what I'm here for. And
someone in cold blood, I won't do it. Yeah.
Killing a monarch is not something that not somewhere where I can go.
Right.
Where are we after that? We get back to
the house.
Their drawing room.
Right.
Where Claire comes in with the missive from Jared, which I wonder how long it takes to get a letter from Jamaica or the West Indies.
Or did he get it done before? Well,
but they've been in Paris for 3 months.
Oh, well, it might not take that long then. It may not take that long.
So, I don't know. But, that letter came from Jared that somehow he has arranged that meet and greet with the prince at the whorehouse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the brothel.
The brothel, yeah.
Which I love Jared. I love, somebody was talking about Jamie immediately knowing that Madame Elise's was a brothel. It's like,
yeah.
Right.
No.
But he's been in Paris before, too, so.
Yeah. But he was a virgin, remember?
Yeah, but doesn't mean he doesn't know where the brothels are.
That's right.
He did in season 1 say he was a virgin, not a monk.
Yeah. So he could have known where the brothels were. Obviously, they're drinking there, so. There's other entertainment. You don't have to sleep with the girls.
He could have heard of it from older people when he was in Paris too. He could have heard talk, of men going there.
Oh, that's true.
There's that possibility.
Yeah.
The
fathers. I'm hoping that we hear that this is that the men do a lot of business in the brothels. That this is kind of like.
Wasn't he supposed to come home with bite marks on his thigh?
Not this time.
Not this time. It's another time. Okay, yeah, I get confused.
Yeah, and again, it's later in the book. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this meeting, and then they end up at this meeting with this Weasley.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah, this little guy.
He's a weasel.
Yeah.
Charlie? Yeah.
Charles is a weasel.
Well, he's clearly pampered to a point, and he's clueless. He's very, I don't know. He clearly isn't them, obviously. And
he's foppish. That's what he is. Yeah. He's foppish.
Right.
I thought
he lives in Pampered life.
Half-wit.
I was actually surprised he wasn't surrounded by more people around him because he is a royal.
But he is in Paris. He's not in Paris officially. I mean, he's already said he can't be accepted at court.
Right.
But I think as a royal, he would still have some kind of bodyguard kind of
entourage with
yeah,
some kind, yeah.
If he's not at court, he would have a group of people there to buffer him. You know, he wouldn't just be walking around. And you know, maybe we'll see that later. But it just seemed kind of strange that he just was sitting there drinking in a brothel.
Well, and it could have been that, you know, his guys,
they might have been in the room
away from him.
Yeah. Right.
You know, that he wanted this time where that he could talk more intimately with Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible too. I just thought that was kind of a weird thing.
So, and maybe he actually has rooms at Madame Elise's.
Oh yeah, he could have. Might be wearing
I wouldn't be surprised at that. You know, I wouldn't.
So that inside the Madame Elise's, that he doesn't have to worry about it because of the bouncer at the door. You know, there's a bouncer.
Yeah, there's someone there to protect the women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, I loved the delicate maneuvering and in this whole scene between the two of them on Jamie's part, because this entire scene, Jamie was able to tell the absolute truth and still have it be working and still be working toward what his cause is, what his, you know, actual mission is to try and stop him and deter him. But the questions that he's asked, he's able to tell the absolute truth to the prince. So as to keep his conscience, you know, completely clear.
Yeah. And he kind of sussed out the prince's cluelessness, maybe, or he was able to challenge him without insulting him, kind of a thing. I thought that was good too. I think Murtaugh was a little more blunt, but I think that Jamie was able to kind of determine that the prince is pretty poorly equipped strategically to understand what he's trying to inspire people to do. You know, that it's more of a we need to do this because it's you know, it's God's will. You know, but what are the
right of King's thing? Just it's like I don't remember that.
I don't think they emphasized it like that, but I don't remember either. So
yeah, but so much of in the book, so much of this took place off screen.
True, yeah, it was related back.
It was Jamie telling Claire about these meetings.
Yeah.
Because book 2 was still from Claire's POV.
Yeah.
So we didn't get these, you know.
Yeah.
POVs with Jamie and Murtaugh and all that stuff. It was all Jamie telling her about, you know, attending the King's levee and you know, the meetings with Charles.
I think they spent too much time on that. I really did. I mean, the guy was really good at making a constipation face, but I mean, I think they spent too much time on that.
Yeah. Well, and the brothel scene was a little bit long. It took a little bit to get into it.
Yeah.
I thought the whole, you know, dildos for rent or sale.
Yeah, like I'm like, all right. I'm sorry, honey. In 1745 or 44, I would never have rented a dildo. you either own that sucker or you don't put it anywhere. I'm telling you.
Heard any discussion? Are those things actually period correct?
Yeah, they pretty much were. They looked like they were carved. Yeah.
I figured that they were just put in there for a joke. That they actually did exist in that shape.
Oh, that's. I was gonna say. I'm pretty sure that the sex toy whole thing probably dates to ancient China.
Oh
yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's why I said when I'm watching it going, I'm sure that they did enough research to actually.
Oh, they carved them out of ivory and ebony, and you know they were all hand carved. There was quite a skill in doing that, and I think you look at the look at the Kama Sutra and stuff. I mean, all that stuff goes so far back. So yeah, they were pretty accurate as far as that goes. But I'm going, okay, we really didn't need that in there. There's so much more that we really didn't need that.
Yeah, I mean, it was amusing.
Yeah, it was amusing.
Yeah.
I did think it was a little long. Like I said, I felt like it took a little bit for that scene to get to where the meat of the scene.
Yeah.
Which was Jamie.
The meat of the scene.
I
Poor meat of the
God, choice of words. Get ready, Aunt. Get ready, Angie. We're spending 4 days together next weekend. So
some sick bitches in here, you know.
Oh, I know. So, but yeah.
So yeah, but the heart of that scene was Jamie talking to the prince and doing the maneuvering and finally showing us that his skill at reading people and knowing how to, actually talk to people to try and bend them to the way he needs them to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Same as he did with Colum the last time in the last season. So similar to that thing with Colum in the last season. So they kind of have laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah, a little bit. Although they cut so much out of that particular episode last season because there was even more.
Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely moving forward with that concept, though.
Well, because this whole thing is going to have to be driven by Jamie because of the fact that this time in Europe, Claire is not going to be listened to by any of these players that need to be, that they need to work with.
Yeah.
She's a woman. A woman is a toy, an appendage, arm candy, an ornament. That's what the women were there for.
Which makes the next scene very interesting because clearly Claire is running that meeting and saying, well, we'll do this next and we'll do that. I thought, wow, Claire's in charge.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing is that in that time period, if you go back to the Kings had mistresses that they put great stock in their political acumen, would you call it? I mean, who was it? Oh, God. The other Louis, the one that got his head chopped off.
16.
Yeah, his mistress, Pompadour. Pompadour had lots of pull in court, and so behind the scenes, yeah, the women, the women were, but in general public, no, they didn't.
Yeah, that's why I thought that was probably what they meant with that scene, is that Jamie and Murtaugh had done the footwork, but it sure looked like Claire was running this whole, scheme.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Or she was the driving force.
Yeah, and she would be the driving force because she's the one that has the upper hand because she's from the future. Right. So that's why they're going to listen to her because, she knows what the outcome is.
Yeah, but she's emphasized again and again that she doesn't know the movement of the armies and the strategies and all that kind of stuff. So this is her coming up with a plan to try and prevent this. This is not her working with knowledge that she
Right.
Yeah, they're trying to subvert the whole Jacobite rebellion movement, the funding and everything.
So yeah, I mean, they immediately latched onto the fact that the funding is the big thing here. Is going to be a big hurdle. They got to have the money to do this whole thing because it takes money to fight a war.
Right.
Yep.
So
figure that out.
But the whole fact that I was a little, when Charles all of a sudden, because he told us, he flat out told us in exposition, I'm not accepted at court, so I can't do this for myself, but I'm going to trust you, the guy I just met, to go in and meet them, get close to the Master of Finance.
But he came recommended. Jamie comes recommended as an honest.
Exactly, and I think I said somewhere, I'm like, wow, Jared has a lot more pull here than I think they actually give him in the book.
Right. Yeah,
so he's telling us that Jared is the one who was an intimate of Charles.
Yeah.
Because again, in the book, which we can talk about, it was Alexander kind of got things going there, but we don't even have an Alexander in the show, so never mind.
So, yeah.
So yeah, that's the whole thing. Jamie knows that the next person he needs to try and get close to, or has been told the next person he needs to get close to, is the Minister of Finance.
Right.
Which is it Joseph Duvernay?
Duvernay, yeah.
So anyway, we get in that next scene, and this is the one where I actually looked at Claire in that kind of dressing gown and thought, because that actually looked like a dressing gown to me.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it was a gown. It was like a robe, yeah.
So I thought she looked like she might be having a little bit of a bulge there because the way she was kind of resting her hands there, walking back and forth. So I was thinking to myself, oh, well, they're going to start showing us that she's, showing a little bit.
Little baby bump, yeah.
Yeah, and even in the next scene, because the next scene is her at Louise's, isn't it?
Yes.
Which, oh my God, I loved this entire scene.
I did too. It was great. Louise was hysterical.
Oh, I love Louise. I mean, and it's like somebody else said. They said I was the same way in the book. Louise didn't interest me hardly at all.
No.
Except for there's a relationship that we're going to talk about in the spoiler zone that I'm wondering if they're going to drop or if they're going to actually keep. But yeah, I mean, every time that guy ripped that hair out and she smacked the crap out of him.
Oh, that was funny. Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Yeah, I love that.
And boy, I could relate too, man, because I used to get everything waxed, armpits, everything, legs, everything. And when Vonda used to do it, man, I would want to punch her in the face. It's like, why am I doing this to myself? Bam, but
Yeah, well, and this was where they brought in Mary Hawkins, which I was like, oh, okay, because this is not how Mary Hawkins was introduced in the book.
Yeah, no,
not at all.
Connection too.
But I'm liking a lot of the how they're condensing a lot of this stuff, and making some characters multiple characters from the book, because DuVernay, which when we talk about him, he's actually another combined character from the book.
Right.
And they actually combined. Somebody said was it you, Phyllis, who said they've combined like 3 balls and the King's Living?
Oh, I said that, but I was incorrect. I stand corrected because I went back and read the book, and the only thing they did is combine the Versailles with the red dress and the nipple dress is one place, and then they dumped in the king thing, the thing with the Jamie and the king's dressing, lever, and then the reveal of Alex Randall, which actually in the book takes place the next day, but it's all at Versailles. So to me, because I hate that book. It's so tedious, all that French stuff. That I thought, man, there's like 3 balls going on here, but it isn't.
I thought they attended a ball before they ever got to Versailles.
Yeah, they'd had at least a dinner party.
Dinner party, and I thought the dumping of the guy into the fountain
that was at Versailles.
Took place at Versailles, but not that first ball with the red dress, was it?
Oh, I thought it was. I think it was with the red dress. Yeah.
I don't know, because I remember that Jamie was telling her to stay out of the alcoves.
Yeah, but she had on that dress, well, we go back to the book here, we're going to spoil a little. Yeah. I think I said something to Jane. I said, what it was that she wore the dress because they needed the attention.
Right.
Because they were trying to get into these groups, and so in the book, Jamie is next to her kind of fending these guys off that want to speak to Claire because she's wearing that dress, and then he finally gets invited off to go somewhere. We'll talk afterwards. But she's left alone, and he's telling her, just don't get caught in those alcoves. But that's where she goes to sit down, because her feet are killing her.
Her feet are killing her, yeah.
Yeah, and then that other character follows her in there. So yeah, that all happened because of the red dress, because the men really just flocked to her, made excuses to come up to speak to her.
Right.
That she was wearing. So.
Well, I do know that meeting Mary Hawkins in there, and there was so much foreshadowing. I mean,
yeah.
That whole, that name sounds familiar, but I don't know where it is. And Mary Hawkins said, well, I'm sure we haven't met. I'd remember. So, it's just kind of like they punched us right in the face or were waving a flag saying, this is important, remember this, remember this.
Yeah.
Remember this girl.
But yeah, and then showing us Colette, so it gives me a little hope for another kind of comic scene.
Yeah, which does happen further down line. So.
Yeah. So because of the monkey and the the whole hearing, but she bites, and Claire kind of backing away from that cage. It was super cute. But this also was an outfit where I thought Claire could be having a little bit of a bulge, just because of the way she kind of stood, and it wasn't as down over her belly. But I mean, and this is them, the invitation to Versailles coming from Louise, so they put a bunch of stuff in with Louise, brought in Mary, brought in her getting them invited to Versailles.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then her making the appointment with whoever it was to make her a dress fit for a queen.
Right. Yeah, she set her up with the dressmaker.
Yeah. But yeah, and we didn't ever hear. I'm wondering though if it's scenes that got cut. about why they needed her in such a,
Yeah. Really
showstopper dress.
Yeah, they didn't emphasize the purpose of having such an extreme dress.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And I think I made a comment elsewhere, like at Previously TV, and I said, I wish they had added a couple more little bit over-the-top dresses, because everybody else in the background, well, once we get to Versailles, but everything in the background, everybody's dressed pretty respectably, even though they're in party clothes. And the only other extreme dress we see is the mistress. And it should have been maybe one or two other, something you wouldn't just wear to go shopping in, kind of dress. A little more revealing. And I wish they had done that too, because that was the whole purpose of the whole, well, you know what it's like at court. And, I can wear a dress like this. It's not going to shock anybody,
Yeah, because technically, there were a lot of women that rouging your nipples was popular at that time, and so the dresses.
We lost Jerry.
Oh.
She fell right out.
Yep.
She dropped her hat.
Yeah. Hopefully she'll try and get back in.
Yeah, I did, picking up on where she left off, I did expect to see more dresses that were low cut, more dresses with at least partial nipples showing, because
sorry, I dropped out.
Yeah.
So somebody was mentioning about nipples showing, because that's they did have that, and they had the fichus that were see-through, and then the breasts would show through them. So you're right. I would think there would be somebody else dressed like that, except for her in the nipple dress.
Yeah, I thoroughly expected to see more of that, and we didn't, but we might later on.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah.
Is Angie? Is Angie there?
Here, I just had to get something else to drink.
Oh, okay, because all of a sudden your face disappeared. I was like,
You're running this show. You can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I turned my camera off, so I'll turn it back on.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the girl that they had in the nipple dress, her boobs weren't made for that dress. I'm sorry.
Oh, I totally agree.
Oh, you know what? Like I said, it looks like if she had taken that dress off, those boobs would have been facing south, man. And no, that's not exactly as much as Murtaugh looked at them. They're boobs. Guys will look at an udder on a cow if it's got two nipples. They can still get it.
They might have. Maybe they could have built the bodice to support them. Hold them up.
They looked like they were
even though I thought it was great. I mean, I think that what they achieved after never ever expecting to see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But still, her boobs looked like they were laying in there like pancakes. I mean, it was like, no.
I don't know how they could have done it differently.
I have to say, I wasn't overly impressed, but I have no room to talk. Trust me.
Yeah.
No, I don't either. But I wouldn't go out in a dress like that. Now, when I was in my 20s, I would have walked around with my boobs hanging out. But I mean, they just didn't look good in that dress. They could have picked a woman with prettier titties. Sorry.
I agree.
Well, I love the red dress. The red dress reveal was, not a huge reveal because they used it in all their advertising.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was fine because it was a very striking image in their advertising.
Yeah.
But I did love Jamie and Murtaugh while they were waiting for Claire, and Jamie calling him, what did he say to him? You swine, you could have at least washed your knees. And Murtaugh's like, I did.
Well, you guys were the whole honeypot scene.
Yeah.
Oh, we did skip right over that, didn't we?
Well,
I can't believe it.
I can't either. We went right over
it. We were right to the red dress.
Yeah.
But yeah, Claire coming back, and I mean, it actually did give an excuse for her to have, participated in the waxing.
Right.
Because she never mentioned anything about feeling, like she was not well groomed or dirty or anything like that in the TV show.
And then Louise saying how the men find it erotic to have all that done. And maybe that'll work, maybe that'll...
Well, and I'm sure it's one thing that when she came back, it was like, well, because to me, this was the definite letting us know that they have not had sex since Wentworth.
So,
because of her, she's nervous. She's obviously trying something new. So it's definitely a way to let us know without explicitly saying that they are. She's worried they're having issues.
Right.
Getting their intimacy back.
Yeah.
So, there were so many people that this is the one big complaint I have seen from book readers is that they hate this scene.
Really?
Why?
Yeah, because they changed it up.
Oh no, but they did it for a reason, just like you said. There had to be a point where they had to show that Claire was starting to notice that her husband wasn't paying her that kind of attention, or that there was a problem. And how do I shake it up but to change things up and maybe see if I can spark it.
If you think about it, we are in the recovery period of Jamie's recovery that he had at the Abbey in the book.
Oh yeah, no, I understand.
All those weeks he had at the Abbey in the book where the recovery happened because they did have sex in that, because they had the grotto sex.
Right.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that. The TV show has changed it, so they have moved all of that, trauma and strife that he's going through into the beginning of this season, and they're having to incorporate it into all of this political intrigue. So I think they're doing an excellent job.
I do too.
Of giving us that emotional core that I really want.
Right.
And yet also letting us have the political intrigue, which a lot of people were bored with in the book. I think it actually makes the season more interesting and keeps you more engaged because the political intrigue, it can turn some people right off. There are some people that would just sit there cross-eyed if that's all we were doing.
Well, they are tightening it up, so I'm good with it so far.
Trust me, there was a lot of fat.
Yeah, and that's
that they could trim.
They continue to trim down their excess. But no, I thought it was a good way to link all those scenes together between the waxing and because that actually happens later too. That doesn't happen before Versailles, and to mix in Claire's choice of having
everything waxed,
and her reasoning to do it, and maybe to get and clearly it worked because he was interested until his psyche took over. And
I tell you, I loved that it showed the intimacy between a married couple who had been married for a while.
Right.
Because she, he was like, the whole thing, I wonder what it looks like without that thatch. And she's like, well, why don't you look? I love the line, it's much more complicated.
More complicated, yes. Yes, that's my favorite.
I love that line just because it lets you know he was very familiar with what it looked like before.
Right.
Which we know because of the Scottish wake-up call in episode
ding, ding, ding. Alarm clock.
Yeah.
We've seen that.
Yeah, that's not new territory for them. So it's that kind of intimacy that I wanted more of in season 1.
Yeah.
That we kind of got pushed to the wayside for the search.
The dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going there because I'll rant for 20 minutes.
I know, that's okay, so will I.
No, I think so. I think it was better.
This scene broke my heart. It absolutely broke my heart, because it looked like, things are working. It's, they're getting closer together. They're actually being able to connect. And then, the flashes, those really quick flashes they put in there were super effective because they were specific things that Blackjack did to invoke Claire during that last violation.
Yeah.
So, and just the look on Jamie's face, the horror on his face of that flash coming, and then there's just kind of that bewilderment of, why is this happening? This is not what I want to think of. We were about to have sex.
Yeah.
And just the tenderness between the two of them, and, her, saying, let's just go to sleep, and, again, him just kind of laying there and letting her kind of hold him. Like I said, just broke my heart.
Mm-hmm. But, I think from, at the end of last season, all of that had happened, and we're only into the second episode of this season, and he went from not kissing her, just kissing her on the hand, to at the end of the first episode kissing her on the lips while they're watching the ship burn, to this. So I think he's making pretty good strides for someone who's had such a traumatic event take place.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how many months. I don't remember exactly how many months they said.
Well, I was going to say they spent 3 weeks in Le Havre, which I'm assuming those 3 weeks when they were waiting for Jared.
Yeah, waiting for Jared.
First got there, he said, I'll write to him, and then when Jared got there, I'm assuming that's when that 3-week time frame happened.
Right.
And then we know that by the time we get to this scene, they've been in Paris for at least 3 to 3.5 months.
Right.
3 months.
Mm.
It's been 3, because that's what she says. On her way to see Louise, she says we've been in Paris for 3 months now.
Right.
So there have been. You're right, Melissa. There actually has been progress for him as far as the intimacy goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can, if you're kind of watching for people who are not even book readers, can clearly see that progress. So I kind of like that. I like being able to see his recovery, and emotional recovery as well as physical recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we move into the red dress scene, right?
Yeah. The red dress at first.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked about the whole, Jamie. There was something cut in that whole conversation between Claire and Jamie after he comes up the stairs, because he's the whole "are you" and then "mad woman, I can see your third rib," and she's like, "No, you can't." And then he gets up there and looks down, and he's like, "Christ, I can see all the way to your navel," that's a direct line. Those are direct lines from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are right out of the books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something that they filmed that was cut because him suddenly saying, "I suppose it'll have to do." I feel like there was something else in there.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the book, I mean, she said something about wearing her green velvet dress, so she still had stuff, she doesn't really have any other appropriate formal wear, in other words. She refers to another dress that she has. This is, they're not even going there in this part.
Well, no, I feel like maybe they shot something that got dropped.
Oh, maybe, yeah. No, I think they probably...
Because I think they release... hey, Karen! Karen just joined the Facebook feed. I think somebody said they're releasing the script for the episode as part of something that Ron's doing.
Oh, okay.
Showing you the original script.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get that and read it and see if there was something more in that scene on the stairs, because like I said, I felt like there was something that got dropped in that, just from the abrupt change in tone of Jamie's tone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did, in any of your extra readings or watching any of the interviews, have any of you heard why in the promos of the red dress it wasn't cut as low? And then remember one of our last sessions on here, we were talking about, I wonder if she's going to open it further,
That's what
or something like that.
I think on Terry's blog, or either on her blog or on Twitter, one of the places I saw her talk about that the dress didn't change. It had to do with the way it was shot and body.
Yeah, there was no change in the dress. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that I think that first promo picture, the angle that it was shot at, it looks like she has a lot of cleavage, but it doesn't show like the dress is that cut that low. And then when you see it, and coming down the stairs and all, you can see that it actually falls open. When you really notice it is when she stands sideways, and then you can see the cup of the bottom of her breast and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
But yeah, because I did see that somewhere. Like I said, it may have been Terry tweeting from the Outlander costume Twitter account.
It could have been.
Talking or answering somebody and saying, no, it wasn't. There was no change. It was just the way, the different angles the dress was shot in different photo shoots.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just made it look like there was a difference in the bodice, but she said it was the same the whole time.
Yeah, that would be speculated. Maybe she would pop it open at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but when you look at it, I mean, I didn't notice it where there would have been any hooks because it would have had to have been like a hook closure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing was just open.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
girls were just being aired out. So.
Stayed.
So anyway, we're walking into Versailles. And Versailles, that ballroom seemed awfully small for Versailles.
Yeah.
It did.
So maybe this wasn't supposed to be a big, huge ball. Maybe it was supposed to be more like a, I don't know, like a musical or a soiree or something.
It seemed like more of their living
much
quarters.
more intimate grouping than a big apartment.
Yeah.
There were multiple rooms used, so maybe that's what it was, is that it was spread out among different rooms as opposed to being one big room.
Well, that's what I'm still thinking that if you're having an actual ball,
yeah,
it's in the ballroom.
Ballroom.
Yeah, you have dancing space and everything.
No, for some reason, I'm thinking this was not actually a ball. This was, again, like a soiree or...
Yeah, just a party, yeah.
Yeah, some kind of a party that wasn't a big formal affair as far as...
Yeah, because when the king came in, if it had been in the ballroom, there would have been a wide berth for him to come in, and everybody would have been lined up on either side according to protocol. And he would have walked down the aisle, and he would have nodded at certain people and stopped to speak to certain people, and everybody would be curtsying and bowing at the same time as he came down. So it was a less formal affair, probably in their private quarters. And like you said, in their parlors and things that they had, because that ballroom at Versailles is pretty fucking huge. Pardon my French, but it's pretty fucking huge.
It would have looked more like that scene from the movie Man in the Iron Mask with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Where they walk down and sit in the chairs and
Yeah. And I mean, it's like I said, it had to be something. What did they used to call those things? I'm trying to remember. And it's not coming to me right now. I had too much wine tonight. But yeah, it was more personal, in their private room. There were quite a few people there, but it was very congested. So
yeah, because I'm even thinking scenes from like Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, which weren't as grand of party. Even those took place in bigger rooms. Yeah,
these were very small rooms, very small.
But yeah, walking through that room, and this is Louise. Louise is the conduit for them meeting the people they need to meet.
Yes.
And another reason that tells me this is more of an intimate affair is the fact that when Claire asks about bringing Jamie, she's like, well, you can, but you'd have more fun without him.
Yeah.
So, but and this is where Claire says I'd like to meet Monsieur
Duvernay, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, he's a man of gross sensibilities, but I'll introduce you.
Yeah, really.
If I can find, if he's here, I'll find him.
If I see him, I'll introduce him to you.
Yeah, and then is this where we get Annalise?
Yes. Annalise.
Yes.
Another scene that I adored.
That was well done, I thought.
Adored her coming up and being all over Jamie, and the look on Claire's face. Just that look, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Yeah, and just waiting for him to explain it. Yeah. And he was perfect. He was perfect. He was all mumbly over his words, and
Murtaugh too was funny in that too. So.
Yeah.
Oh well, and the actress who's playing Annalise, as much as I didn't want them to go this, bringing back a past love interest, I actually like the way they've done it so far.
Yeah.
Because it came that way from the book, but they didn't.
And she kept touching him too. She kept straightening his.
Yeah, touching his hair and straightening his hair. And
it was good. It was funny.
And Claire had that look like, you better get your hands off my man, or I'm gonna rip your head off.
I think she thought it was funny.
I think so too. I didn't get that from it. I thought she was just kind of chagrined, and she was waiting for him to explain it, and was going to have fun razzing him about it too.
Enjoying his being uncomfortable about it.
Yep, she did. Yeah. She did. Yeah, I mean, because technically,
say anything. She's just letting him talk. So I thought it was a good scene. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, and then the whole thing I loved about her when she talks about the fact that, Jamie fought a duel for her, and Jamie kind of brings up the fact, well, what's really interesting is that I only scratched my opponent, because I felt like there were a bunch of double entendres in that entire
Oh, the scratched my wood. Yeah.
He actually said, I only scratched my opponent, barely scratched my opponent, but one small insignificant duel, and I'm just thinking to myself, duel may be another word for something else, and so anyway, I loved all of that. And then when he says, well, she actually married the loser, and then Louise pipes up, oh, how romantic. I loved Annalise's deadpan. He's dead. Small.
The pox,
I loved that. I mean, it's great. And then they made Annalise the conduit to get Jamie in with the king, which again is condensing the story down and getting rid of a bunch of extraneous characters and a bunch of stuff. I had to slog my way through reading the book.
Right. Something in the book that happened off scene and had to be described actually got acted out. So.
Yeah. So and then this is when we cut, and Claire sending Murtaugh with Jamie. It's like, oh no, you're going, go. Why do you think you're here?
Yeah, go. That was funny. Yeah. I know there was some issues with the scene with the king as far as, do we have to see that? But I thought it was funny. I mean, it was...
Well, it was funny, and it's a snapshot, again, of what they did. I mean, why men thought it was a privilege to go watch the king take a shit. I'll never, ever, ever understand the mentality behind that. But, I just thought it was a little too long.
Yeah, it was a little long.
Yeah, it was a little lengthy. I mean, like I said, he could only make so many constipation faces and trying to push it out. I was expecting when he went over and bent over for somebody to lift up his coat and stick something up there to try to yank it out. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to do. About halfway through it, I was tired. I at least wanted a fart out of him so we would know there was progress.
At least.
Or I was going to throw on a glove and bend him over and dig the impaction out myself.
That's it.
It was one or the other. I wanted something to happen.
Yeah. Spoon would have worked wonders,
Yeah.
I mean, And I understand they wanted to get that connection with Jamie, where Jamie's going to suggest the porridge, and that's going to evacuate his bowels, and the king's going to be forever grateful that he can shit now because he's eating this crap in the morning. So, I mean, it's like, yeah. So.
Well, and I did love Jamie in that scene. I mean, and I love the fact that they're giving so much more emphasis to the fact that he is Laird Lord Turok.
Yeah.
That actually has some weight in this society.
Right.
So he's not just another Mackenzie man.
Yeah, well, it's a good way for them to show his actual intelligence and everything, too. To see that he is really, he's not just a fighter and a brawler. He's actually, well educated and
highly intelligent, a very good character, very good strategist.
Yep, and he's actually a good match for Claire too. You know, so it does help. It does help these little.
Yeah, because I have felt that they have let Claire be the
brains.
Show. Yeah, and that was one of my complaints about last year, is that they made her Super Claire so often.
Yeah.
That,
Well, it's going to be his season to shine, I think, this year, and I just hope that I'm waiting to see him play chess.
Yeah, which is coming next week.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. So,
and you can see too, with them beginning to show his level of intelligence, you can see too why Column in season 1 kind of alludes to the fact that now you'll never get to be Laird. Like Column actually had it in the back of his mind, that he might possibly be able to put Jamie in as Laird. Maybe he knew Jamie's mind for being able to work himself out of sticky situations.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get into it in last season, but we do know from book reading that Jamie fostered with Dougal, and he spent time at Leoc. So in his formative years. So Colum and Jamie, or Colum and Dougal, would have been very cognizant, and the fact that he was educated at university in France.
Yeah.
You know, he went to university in Paris.
Right.
So it's not just when he was fighting with the French that, from his time in France. He actually went to university there. So I guess in the show he says something about having had tutors.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're at the Black Kirk.
Yeah.
He talks about having tutors.
But yeah, I mean, because I always kind of didn't like the fact that they seemed to be diminishing Jamie in order to elevate Claire as far as, you know, the intelligence and the driving force and the having the smarts. So I'm hoping that they continue to do what they're doing.
Yeah, they'll definitely equal it out. I think they'll
hoping
equal
they
it out this
continue
year.
what they've been doing this season so far.
Yeah.
And showing that Jamie's every bit her equal, and maybe even more so because he's going to be thinking big picture, or he's going to have to be thinking big picture as we move forward.
Yeah.
So then we end up with the whole scene with Louise grabbing DuVernay because Claire's gone out to take a breather outside, which would have been somebody said a perfect time for her to say, you know, that was a little close in here, that the symptoms of pregnancy, you know, she needed to get some air. And then she walks out to, what did Alistair call it? The gazebo to, oh God. It was a makeout gazebo, basically.
Kissing bread.
The gazebo to Inspiration Point, or, you know.
Kissing bread to get at the Red Fair.
Yeah, the gazebo took the place of the alcoves.
Right.
Because there were several. I didn't see it till like the second time I watched it. I didn't see the couples there in the shadows.
Yeah.
Oh no, I did. First thing off.
So.
They're shooting back to her. There were couples off to the sides.
Off to the side. So anyway, when I was watching it the first time at work, I may have been at work. So I was watching,
Ange. I think you were. You were.
Yeah, I was watching on my iPad. I think when I watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to watch it full screen until I got home the next morning. But so she's sitting waiting, and Louise has sent DuVernay off, and this is where they've combined DuVernay with, I can't remember what level.
Vicomte, yeah, Vicomte.
He was a Vicomte, that's what he was. He was a Vicomte.
Yeah, no, he was a young child or a young man, very young.
He was a Vicomte with a foot fetish.
Yeah, with a foot fetish, right.
And followed her in to the alcove because she'd gone there to take her shoes off because her feet were killing her.
Right, she was tired.
So, you know, I loved this whole scene out there, and I actually liked them combining the characters and cutting down on some, again.
That other character went nowhere else, so they didn't need him. They didn't need to introduce some other random character.
Yeah, although we also skipped right over the whole conversation about male members.
Oh, that was funny, yeah.
Which was actually a conversation that was pulled from the King's stables.
Yeah, that's whole nother scene. They may not even go there, so.
Yeah, although it looks like it, but I don't know. I may be projecting about, you know, what the scenes look like where they're taking place. So, but
that's why Claire left, because they were just getting ridiculous about the
Okay.
Well,
they were insulting. You know, it was, as several people said, it reminded them of the Mean Girls.
Yeah. Oh, the English. Okay, excuse me.
Listen to this language, and yeah. So anyway, we went up with DuVernay basically making a huge hard pass at Claire, and her pushing him away, and Jamie happening upon them just in time to push DuVernay right over the edge, and you hear you don't hear the splash. I love the fact you didn't hear the splash right away.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, he hit the ground and he either rolled down several times to roll into the thing,
or was maybe trying to hold his balance before he actually fell over. Or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was just. And then cutting to him drying his wig in front of.
Oh, the wig! Oh, when he put the wig back on too. Oh my God, I was cracking up.
I lost it because I'm like, oh my God, he looks like he's a member of the hair bands from the '80s.
I know. First thing I thought was like Poison, you know.
Aren't the wigs of that time? They're made out of horsehair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or something. They're not human hair anyway.
No.
So they're very coiffed, and they're they have to stay. I mean, they have to be groomed by themselves for the curls and all that, and so they don't get washed, they don't get wet, or
no, that's why they were full of lice.
Yeah, so that kind of makes it funnier because clearly any of those guys going in the drink are going to ruin their wigs.
Yeah. And then when he throws it on his head again, when the king comes in, I'm cracking up. I was
like you have to have a wig on when he.
Yeah, yep, you had to have a wig on. It was hysterical. I loved it.
There was so much.
I didn't mind. I actually liked that character. I thought he was going to be a real pig that I wasn't going to be able to like at all, but
he's very funny. Yeah.
I actually liked him. He turned out to be super charming.
Yeah.
And sincerely apologizing. I'm so sorry.
My wife would kill me. Yeah.
Too much.
I kept expecting the wig to catch on fire.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
But it also again showed Jamie being extremely clever because that man offered to do them a favor, and Jamie saying no, your friendship is favor enough. Immediately, got them in with him, and that's when he asked him about the chest, and I loved Murtaugh piping in and saying, oh, he's a master.
Yeah. Jamie doesn't want that. No, wait, no, I'm not that good.
Well, the fact that it's something that Murtaugh would even, the fact that he says, I'm a master, so, my video died.
What happened?
The video on the feed died. Okay, I'll start it again.
I'm just enjoying Murtaugh having a voice because we didn't get much from that in the first season, and I think it really solidifies his relationship with Jamie and Claire both, and gives you a little bit of insight into he's an active member in this trio in Paris and not just Jamie's shadow.
Yeah, I definitely like the fact that they have fleshed out his character and given him actual stuff to do that helps drive the plot. Because a lot of times I feel like from the book he was off in the shadows.
Yeah.
He only came on stage when we needed him to do something.
Right. He was like a servant basically, or I don't know if I'd call him a servant, but yeah, he was just there to run errands for Jamie basically, or to. Go with him places, but yeah, he never said anything. He never contributed anything.
Yeah. Well, we haven't gotten. Well, this is the thing for the spoiler zone. Because there's a reason in the book why Murtaugh went everywhere with him.
So yeah, I'm with you though. I like that they are fleshing him out and giving him a point of view in this whole storyline.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I love the fact they've done that. I like the fact that they're giving us intelligent Jamie, intelligent, well-educated, smart, clever. I love that.
Yeah.
Because then we're cutting. This is when the king comes in.
Right.
With the mistress in the swan nipple dress.
Yeah.
Which was it wasn't a huge little scene there because it was basically just him walking in.
Yeah, he's making the round through the room, it looks like.
Yeah, and the big thing was the mistress in the dress, but the looks the fact that he stopped and looked at Jamie and talked to him, could be a significant thing.
Yeah. And he gave Claire the once-over.
He definitely gave Claire the once-over, up and down.
Yeah.
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 And I also like that besides the fact of the nipple dresses, they didn't make a big deal out of it. I mean, they just walked up and she had it on. And it wasn't like they did some big dramatic reveal or made it anything more than you would expect from the mistress of the cake. The only person who really reacted to it was Murtaugh.
Yeah.
Everybody else saw it, but they just let it get going,
I read something in somebody's blog that said at this particular time in history in France, it was not unusual for the king or the aristocracy to expose their genitals to show their power.
I said that. Yeah, it started like in medieval times and post-medieval times. I mean, they would walk around literally with this was no cod pieces or anything. They would walk around with their genitalia hanging out. It was common. It was common. So, I mean, that was their show of power, you know. Yeah. Letting it all hang out.
I wish you were Raina's in the thread. I wish you were over in the video call, because we're still chatting over in the video call.
Oh, come on, Raina.
Gary says, come on.
Come on, Raina Cakes. Let's go. Yeah, it wasn't not unusual. And, if you look closely, it actually looks like they really did give her the appearance of having her nipples pierced, because it looks like there's actual ivory needles going through the top of her nipple, which,
I didn't look super close. I kept wondering, was that supposed to be the swan's beak going through there?
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be the swan's beak going through her nipple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that the description in the book is there's like a chain that's going between them and everything else, so they didn't do that. Yeah. I'm sure the whole setup was pasties, but...
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think that was...
They probably just used a pasties of some kind and designed them that way, but... Anyway, it was very interesting.
Yeah, well...
It was. It was a lot of money for a dress, though, that just had, 30 seconds of airtime.
Yeah.
But they're not stinting on costumes, because Terry has said that they've made... All the extras, they made those costumes for all the extras.
I know. What did she say, 10,000 costumes or something?
10,000 costumes.
That's just crazy. Wow.
That's insane.
For season 2, yeah.
Again, I want to know what their budget is, because it's crazy expensive, because those fabrics are beautiful.
Well, and she showed in that little clip she did at the Outlander Emmy panel, she showed them creating the embroidery, because they did their own embroidery.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about. Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that they ended up going to painting the fabric because they didn't have time to do all the embroidery they needed to do.
Do all that brocade that way, yeah.
So they did there's a lot of fabric that's painted. I think definitely that blue kind of dressing gown. I think it's a dressing gown. Maybe it's just a gown. The picture of the two of them laying on a chaise, he's bare-chested and she's got the blue on. I think that's painted fabric on that gown. Well, hey, Corey. Corey's over in the thread, too.
Yeah.
But Murtaugh is definitely has his eye drawn when he spies the Duke of Sandringham. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that was good.
I wanted to kill him. I wanted to kill that smarmy bastard.
Yeah, charging over there, ready to kill him, and more foreshadowing, Jamie coming in saying, it's death to draw your sword in front of the king.
Yeah.
Well, he already said the dueling is outlawed.
The dueling is outlawed, yeah.
Said that in the beginning when they were doing their sword practicing.
So yeah, there's a bunch of things that they have signposted in this episode as far as this is important, this is important, this is important. This may come back, so keep an eye on it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So, and also, clearly Murtaugh is going to have a problem with the Duke of Sandringham, who is funnier than heck. Like, what? I hope what you just said was you're sorry when he talks to him.
Well, and people keep saying, that whole apology that he had about having been forced to give that complaint.
Yeah, to Jack.
Instead of the Court of Sessions.
Oh, bullshit.
Oh, I
know. Bullshit.
I know. We all know that. They know that.
Right.
But there are people who keep saying, well, Jamie accepted his apology. Jamie did not accept his apology.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Jamie simply said what's in the past is in the past, or what's done is done.
Yeah.
He never said, I accept or I forgive. He just said what's done is done.
Right.
So, to me, again, this entire episode was Jamie being true to Jamie as far as being truthful and sticking to his own moral compass.
Right. What's he going to do? Is he just going to knock the guy out in front of the king? He can't do it either. You know, there's nothing he can do to the Duke standing there at Versailles that is going to be effective. I mean.
Yeah, but I tell you, the way Simon Cowell played this was playing it like the Duke knew everything that had happened to Jamie.
Yep.
I think you got a pretty good idea, yeah.
That, you know, just that the whole kind of smug, I know something about you attitude he had, and the fact that Claire sent him off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
After the Duke is insistent, and this is the one thing. See, I think they cut stuff out of episode 1 about, because Claire says that Jamie's gone to inspect the port. That was the shipment of port.
Yeah.
I think they cut some stuff in that scene with Jared about him having half of a shipment of that Belle Rouge.
Oh yeah, because the Duke asked about that.
Yeah.
Because here you have that, and I must have a case. So I think they cut some of that from that first episode, which is good stuff. So, you know, non-book readers, this was a whole thing that the Duke, the Count, who lost his shipment of port with the burning of the Patagonia,
the other half.
They had split that shipment. They had split that vintage. It was an entire vintage of this very special alcohol, very special port. So now Jared has the monopoly on it, has the market cornered on it, because he has the only available supply.
Right.
So that was what the Duke was referring to, was that port.
Right.
But just making that deal, but Murtaugh coming in and saying, on credit, I'm sure. You know, there's not going to be the cash. Because when you go back, we remember the thing about the McDonald's was the whole deal with the McDonald's was an unpaid debt.
Yeah. The Duke doesn't have... He's aristocracy and whatever, but he doesn't really have a lot of spending cash.
A lot of them didn't either back then. They counted on the kindness of other aristocrats and people.
And credit.
You know, and credit. I mean, you look through history and how many, well, you know, I always go back to people like Mozart. You know, Mozart was brilliant, and he was a court composer, and he was this and that, and he ended up in a pauper's grave with hundreds of other people. You know, I mean,
artists had patrons anyway. I mean, you know that anybody like that would have people that paid for his living expenses because they, you know, they're investing in the artistic part of these people's lives. For artists, you know, I know the painters were that way. So
and so the aristocracy all lived on credit.
Sure.
You know, they didn't have even the kings in the you know, courts at that time, they lived on credit, and when they exhausted their credit with one person, they went to somebody else, and you know,
had to somehow sell or generate cash somehow.
Cash somehow.
Yeah.
Selling off properties or jewelry that's been in the family or things like that. So it was common for them not to pay their debts. Yeah, very common.
Which, you know, that whole method of living is what gave rise to the bourgeois class.
Yep.
You know, the merchant class, because and the nouveau riche, because they did have the money. They were merchants. They were making money, so they were able to start buying those bits of family heirlooms and property and all that kind of stuff. So
and the upper class hated them for it. Yep.
So once Jamie and Murtaugh go off, and it's Claire and Sandringham, this scene, this was probably the most tension we have felt all season. Between the two of them, just two people square who obviously despise each other.
To kill him herself.
They obviously despise each other. The whole tension between the two of them.
Yeah, that first exchange where he says about cultivating
important
people.
So, you know, I liked that tension, and I liked the fact that I also loved the fact that because of what Sandringham did, it was actually a smart play that they did in the first season, even though I didn't particularly like the way they changed Sandringham's character and his storyline. As far as doing the whole, you know, complaint to be given the Court of Sessions, I was thinking to myself, what the hell? It actually is paying off this season because it actually is giving Murtaugh an awful lot of motivation for things that are going to come up later.
Yes.
Much more, which we'll talk about in the spoiler zone, which we need to get to quick because I've already been doing this for an hour and a half.
I know.
thought we were going to do this in half an hour.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, maybe if you're talking with yourself, Angie, you'll get it done in a half an hour, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Well, I moved it back to 8 o'clock. That's why I'm starting at 8 o'clock. So, but we've still been going. We didn't start till 8:15 though.
Yeah. I've got 11 o'clock here, so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to have to go to bed pretty soon. So.
Yeah, we're going to finish up here pretty quick.
We're almost done. Then we can get the spoilers on.
Yeah, well, there's not really that much more to go over here.
No, it's just the fact of Alex Randall coming up and the fact that it really changed this introduction to him. But
it was good though.
Yeah, I was actually fine with it because he's, quiet and charming, and they're letting us. I didn't remember from the book about him being sick.
Not obvious.
So they're bringing that in right away, probably because they're having to move stuff so fast.
Yeah.
They're having to condense stuff so fast, so they're letting us know that he is on the sickly side, because he did say it's a chronic condition.
Right.
So I wonder if they're not going to have the scene in the book where he was introduced. The whole scene prior to.
No, this is it.
We're not going to see that.
I think this is it. Because this is where she finds out, and the rest of the audience finds out that Blackjack Randall's not dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, we get that whole shock from her, and because all this time she's been reassuring Jamie that he's dead. He's dead. He can't come back and hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And now, he's not dead. He's obviously, according to his brother, he's in perfect, very good health.
Mm-hmm.
And
slightly injured a couple months.
Slightly injured, a while ago, because it would have been about 4 months ago.
Yeah, so he's getting better.
So, that's her, do I tell him? Do I not tell him? Of course she's got to tell him. She better tell him.
Yeah.
I would say that this is where I was like going, okay, I get what they're doing. That's fine. But are we going to play this as Claire has a big secret and this is going to be a problem later when Jamie finds out that she's got this big secret, or is she just going to tell him? And
she needs
straight up.
Yeah, she needs to tell him. She can't have that big secret like that, because that's going to create animosity.
Yeah.
And they have enough tension going on as it is.
I was going to say, I don't need false tension between the two of them, false conflict between the two of them, her knowing something that is really going to affect him and her not telling him. I don't need that. There's enough other stuff going on.
I hope they just settle it right up in front next week.
Yeah.
Just get it said, get it done, let it play out how it's they're gonna have it play out. But yeah, I don't want that either. Because to me that's false. For all the closeness that this couple has, even with all the trauma, there's a very big closeness to them, and so to leave that as a big secret would be wrong.
But if they keep it a secret for a little while, if they have her keep it secret for a little while, it might lead into a foreshadowing of why he was so abrupt in events that will happen down the road. That we'll have to talk about in spoilers. I'm just
looking at we're getting slightly spoilerish here. Because
we're at the end. We're talking theory now.
Well, I'm talking about the fact that the trailers for next week.
Oh, okay.
Because they are showing that there's some there's continuing conflict between the two of them.
Uh-huh.
Over
the whole situation,
Well, we don't know over what, but their situation in Paris as far as what Jamie's having to do.
Okay.
The fact that he is lying to people and going against his natural
instincts,
his natural personality, his
honor,
forthrightness.
Yeah. He's being dishonorable in a way. Yeah.
Right. It's totally against.
So the fact that he's doing all that, I hope they don't pile on that while he's doing all this stuff against his better nature.
He's keeping another secret.
Big secret that's gonna freaking blow his head off at some point. I mean, So I don't know. I was curious how they're gonna play this out, and I hope they don't make a big misstep.
Yeah, me too. Next week's episode is called Useful Occupations and Deceptions.
Right.
Is that the title of a chapter in the book?
Probably.
No useful occupations. I don't have my book next to me.
Yeah, it probably is, though, yeah.
And we saw the scenes about, a code in music, which I'm not happy that they're doing that, because that was so freaking confusing in the book.
Yeah, maybe it'll act out better.
Maybe. But it looks like we're going to see...
Maybe it'll explain it a little bit better.
Are we saying we're going to get into spoilers now? So that people...
Well, I'm just saying, this is from the trailer. We're meeting Mother Hildegard, and this is people who have done if it's been out there. This is Francis Delatour's playing a character.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to meet Fergus, probably?
Fergus, I think so, too.
Yeah,
because it would make sense with the title of Useful Occupations because of the reason that Jamie hires Fergus, so we'll probably see him, too.
And discussions,
Yeah.
Okay, so we are in an hour and 45-ish minutes in, and we're now the spoiler. So, if you are somebody who is trying to avoid spoilers for the rest of the season or not hear anything about the books if you're a non-book reader, go away. Because everything after this is just going to piss you off because we're going to talk about stuff. We've all read the books.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some stuff that...
Give our opinions.
Yeah, and see if we can talk about hasn't been... Things that have happened that may be bringing stuff from other parts. So anyway, we'll see you next week, guys. Next week I'm going to have a big sign that says spoiler zone, spoiler zone. I'm going to hold it up and so that people can go, oh, I need to go away.
Yeah.
So first couple of things...
I don't think any in our group are completely spoiler-free.
Well, there's some people in the Facebook group.
Oh, are they? Okay. Yeah. I don't think they haven't read books.
This particular video is being broadcast into the main Facebook group, not the book club group.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Okay. What was the first thing that I put off? I should have made a list.
Yeah.
Damn.
We have to be back at the beginning. Where were we?
We've jumped so far forward. It's 3 months. Jamie and Claire in Paris. Jared has arranged. The thing I was thinking about was the fact that they have brought Jamie to meet Prince Charles in the brothel. So they've brought the brothel in already. So I'm wondering if all of these meetings are going to take place in the brothel, which would be a reason for Jamie to be in the brothel rather than having to go in. Because I don't think they're bringing in the fact that he's having to chase down and pay his warehouse foreman's debt.
Oh, I thought that was him trying to get away from an assassin. That's when he runs into Fergus. It's him, and it wasn't even at this at the brothel he normally visits. I don't think. That he visits with the prince. I don't think it's that brothel.
Well, I was going to say it's the Madame Elise's is where he meets Fergus.
Oh, and that's where they're at, right?
In the book, I'm pretty sure it's Madame. Yes, it is Madame Elise's.
But that's not where they're at with Charlie, right?
That is where they're. You mean as far as in the book?
They're in the story. What was the name of that brothel? Is that the same brothel, Elise's?
Madame Elise's is the only one I remember.
Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Because a lot of meetings take place in the brothel.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, because this may be the fact that they may not do the assassin thing. They may have. They may have cut that whole.
I'm gonna get off in a minute.
Plot as far as.
Yeah, because it never goes really anywhere.
Well, and we find out that it's not who we think it is. We find out it's not the count. It's not the count. It's Sandringham who's trying to kill him.
Yeah, that's later. Yeah, so. Yeah, I don't think they need to do that. I think they can skip that.
Yeah, we'll see if they have that at all.
Storyline. That's why this thing is just so convoluted. It's like, what in the heck? Yeah.
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 Because I'm wondering if just one of these meetings he has with the prince or other members of the thing, or I'm sure he's going to be meeting with the prince. And I lay you odds it happens at Madame Elise's.
Okay.
And I wonder if that's where he's going to end up meeting Fergus in some capacity at one of those meetings.
Fergus actually, I know by the story, Fergus is not in sight all the time. He as a resident at the brothel, it's not like he's everywhere. He's kept out of sight.
Yeah.
He happens to see Jamie in that one scene being chased and helps him get out of the brothel, but he's not always around, so we haven't seen him because he's just not. He wouldn't be at a party or he wouldn't be in a room where they're entertaining the men or anything like that. So
no, he's more living. Although it says something about.
What'd you say?
I can't remember now.
Yeah. Right, ladies, I am going to sign off now. I'm sleepy.
All
and
right.
morning is going to come too soon. So, okay. Have a good night.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Good night.
Yep, we'll see you next week.
All right, bye.
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 And the other thing I was wondering is if we're going to get the relationship between Charles and Louise.
Yeah, that's another one that's kind of. I mean, do we need it? I thought that's the only reason Claire knew Louise is because she was seeing Charles. I don't think she knew her, or well, she was introduced to her socially, but...
He was introduced to her socially because it became the fact that it wasn't common knowledge that...
Charles and Louise were
lovers.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
They may skip that. I mean, I don't even know if that's historically correct or anything, so...
Oh, I don't know, but I mean, there was a big subplot with that because Louise ends up pregnant and...
No, but I mean, in the real history of that era, was that actually a historically correct act, or was it a speculation? Is that really a person? I don't know.
Yeah. I have no idea, but yeah, there's a whole, because when Louise got pregnant in the book, then Charles couldn't, because then she kind of kicked him out of her bed, and
yeah.
There was one time when Charles came over the tops of the rooftops after having had a fight with Louise, or had to flee Louise's because her husband came home.
Yeah. And he had the monkey bite.
Yeah, so that's why I wondered. I mean, they specifically introduced us to Colette.
Yeah, they might go that route.
Maybe that's because we know that he was looking for a woman in the brothel.
Right.
So I don't know, except that he's not accepted. He's not welcome at court.
Right.
So it's a matter of how does he meet her, or has he already met her, and they're having this relationship that nobody knows about it. So that was another thing I was wondering.
I would look at it like court is one thing, but they're still social. They're still a social groups that go and they have parties and they have get-togethers, and I'm sure he's invited to some of those. Just because the king doesn't invite him to court or to Versailles doesn't mean that he's not mingling with the high society there.
Because he's close to some of the higher ups because they're Jacobite sympathizers.
Right. So he's got connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just officially says he's not there officially because he's not invited to court. You know.
Yeah.
Louis' choice is that he doesn't have him at court. Doesn't bring him in and acknowledge him, but. There's still a lot of social things. And that's one thing the book did say is that, there were lots of parties and dinner parties and interminglings and stuff that didn't involve the king. So, yeah.
So that whole relationship I wondered if they're going to do, and what was the other thing? Oh, like I said, I love the fact that they have given actual motivation for Murtaugh's hatred and vengeance against Sandringham.
Right, absolutely.
And it has to do with Jamie, not Claire.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that'll play into it, but it makes so much more sense for him to want the Duke's head because of of his involvement in ending up with Jamie being where he was.
Yeah, with the whole Randall thing, yeah. So.
My son came in and was telling me good night when you all were talking. Did one of you say that we thought the whole time that the Comte was the one that was trying to kill Claire or trying to harm them, and it ended up being Sandringham?
Yeah, it's actually the Duke.
Why did I not know that? Maybe I need to go back and read that again.
It kind of gets revealed when Claire ends up in the Duke's house.
Yeah,
it's
not Claire's part of it. It's when Claire ends up in the Duke's house, which she basically gets taken to northern England almost.
Right, when they use that ploy at Falkirk to get out of wherever they're trapped.
The kirk that
That's
they're.
Right.
Yeah, they're trapped at Falkirk, and
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
goes to the English and then
playfully tells her, you know, that was me. So they have revealed the Duke's character, true character, so much earlier in this show than they ever did in the book.
And that's good. I'm fine with him being.
I'm fine with him being the main antagonist here.
Because I actually felt in the book that it came out of the blue. You were like, what? Where did that happen? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's a much tighter plot point.
Yeah.
To actually show us that he's not this, you know, frivolous, foppish guy.
That he actually has a very intelligent but deviously intelligent mind.
He's got an agenda. Yeah. So I think it's
that he's every bit as evil and twisted as Blackjack.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like Blackjack may have shared, I don't know how much he would have shared.
Yeah.
But I think he may have let him know that he had Jamie at his mercy.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably wasn't a big detail-oriented thing, but he no doubt, you know, let Sandringham know, he got the better of Jamie on some level.
Well, and I think the fact that, at least from the book standpoint, Sandringham knew very well what Blackjack's nature was.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
He does.
Well, in Sandringham, you know, it's alluded to that Sandringham wanted Jamie when he was younger.
Oh, yeah.
When they both happened to be at Leoc.
Well, both in the book and in the show. I
mean,
it's almost brushed over pretty quickly in the show because he basically, you know, says that he had a fondness for him before, but that he wasn't going to offer up his backside for it.
Yeah, and so I think there's a little bit of an angst with Sandringham, even about that with Jamie, and so he would be like, ha ha ha, you know, someone had you. If it wasn't me, it was Blackjack, you know, just because men like that are not used to being turned down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else was there? I was trying to think if there was something else that... Oh, they brought in that conversation between the women about men's private parts and what you call them, and that was at the stables. I mean, that was at the visit to the royal stables.
Yeah, that's a whole, something further down,
Which I'm wondering if, again, you're right, I'm wondering if they'll do, since they have established Sandringham as such a baddie here at this part of the season, because it was Jamie with Sandringham to look at the mares, because Sandringham was adding to his stables in England.
Oh, that's right,
And he asked Jamie to, you know, evaluate the mares that he was looking at.
Right. So then that was kind of a superfluous scene anyway, other than just...
That whole stay, except it was the first time she was having trouble with her pregnancy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we don't really need it because I can put that anywhere.
Yeah. So they kind of cut that out. That'll be, it's fine. Again.
That'll be kind of sad, though, because I thought the stable scene would be really, really interesting. That would be really beautifully shot.
Yeah.
Except they are doing, they're doing some kind of park scene because that brown flower dress.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
They are, the shots I've seen are that outdoor park area, like where they were where Jamie and Murtaugh were practicing.
Yeah.
So that's somewhere.
I had hoped maybe that that dress was worn at the picnic where Claire eats, they crunch on the little birds, and Claire has to go outside, and that's when she meets Alexander the first time.
Yeah,
and so now that we've already met Alexander, I wonder if they're just going to cut every bit of that.
I think so, because that was part of the Versailles visit.
Yeah.
It was like the next day that they were at lunch or whatever, and that's when they start crunching on. And that's when the Duke shows up, because they've been waiting on an English aristocrat that hadn't got there yet. And that's when all that happens. Yeah, so I'm sure that they've
condensed and combined a bunch of that stuff and have the Duke show up now. Although he did say he was returning to England, but he would be back.
Right.
So he's going to leave and come back.
Yeah. That's probably pretty common. Only a couple days across the channel there on a boat.
Since they're condensing France so much,
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they're going to lengthen the Scotland part of it.
Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I was looking at the episode titles and the air dates. They only have air dates up through episode 8 or 9. I can't remember which one. Whatever one is slated to air, I think it's May 28th is the last Saturday in May. They don't have air dates assigned to the ones after that.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if it's just because it's 2 months down the line.
I don't know. It makes me wonder if they're going to take a break.
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. I wonder if they're going to take a break again.
So you think they take this out with 13, and maybe it actually is 16, 8, and 8 again?
No, I think it's like I said, it's either 8 and 5 or 9 and 4.
Oh, 9 and 4, boo.
Yeah.
I can't remember where it broke. I can pop over and look at that. I've got to get out of this.
Oh, darn it. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted them to go straight.
Well, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that they've only assigned air dates, like I said, up through...
just before the holiday.
Yeah, the 28th is probably...
Yeah, right before
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it's Memorial Day. I mean, yeah, right before Memorial Day. Shoot. I won't be happy.
Well, let me look real quick so I can see what the last assigned episode is with an air date.
Yeah.
Look at that closely. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's the end of May, so we're only at the mid-April, so that's 6 or 8 weeks now.
So it's... Come on, show me. I got so used to doing this on my phone with the app that using the big site is so... Where is everything?
While you're looking that up, I'll explain a little bit about what I was talking about right before we went into the spoiler alert time. If Claire keeps that a secret, even for a little while from Jamie, that might build up enough animosity in the TV viewers' perspective for him to just all of a sudden jump up and leave Claire in the middle of the night and go out and hunt down Blackjack. You know, because not only is Blackjack still alive, but she's hid it from him.
Right.
You know, instead of him telling Claire, or, you know, because that doesn't happen until later.
Right. But somehow you have to reveal that he's in Paris. That's where it's going to get interesting because...
Well, because I'm thinking that that's not going to happen until there's an actual episode called Untimely Resurrections.
Yeah.
Episode 5 is Untimely Resurrections.
That's number 5?
That's number 5, because I think that's because next week is Useful Occupations and Deceptions, and I think that's where Claire is going to end up going to the hospital, L'Hôpital des Anges.
Right.
And we're going to meet Fergus because they're going to start stealing, you know.
Yeah.
They haven't said anything about the correspondence, but I would imagine that's where they're maybe going to do that. The episode after that is La Dame Blanche, which I think is going to be the attack and the rape.
Yeah, the rape in Paris, yeah.
And Untimely Resurrections is the next one, and if you think about it, where they ran into Randall was at Sandringham's house, where Mary was staying.
Yeah, where Mary was staying, yeah.
Yeah, they went to see Mary.
Right.
To check on her.
No, I'm sorry. No, they went looking for Alex, because I just read it. Mary stayed with her father, because in the book, she's with her father. She's not with Sandringham. She's with her father. They see Mary at Sandringham's because she's looking for Alex now.
That's true. That's right. Yes, that's right.
But that's where they run into Randall.
That's where they run into Randall.
So,
and I would lay you odds that's going to happen after the La Dame Blanche episode, during the Untimely Resurrections episode, and then we have Best Laid Schemes as the episode after that on May 14th, and I'm just not sure if that has to do... I don't know. Somewhere in there, there's going to have to be maybe that's where they discuss. I don't know if they're going to do the whole trying to, steal the shipment that Charlie's trying to
make money on some
because the trailer for next week, Charles says that he's gotten the money.
Yeah, but that might be Sandringham. Sandringham promises his money.
Yeah.
Then too.
So, and maybe it's Charles expecting that he's going to have the money because he's found this investment.
Yeah, he's got him. Well, plus, yeah. But I know Sandringham has promised him £50,000 or something.
Well, that's in the musical.
Musical. Oh, the musicale. Yeah.
No, in the cipher.
Okay.
We don't know that that's from Sandringham because that cipher is simply signed S, and it says £50,000 upon Your Majesty setting foot on English soil.
Okay. Okay. So he still has to get there. Okay.
So I don't know. It just depends on how much of this plot they're going to do. But anyway, the last episode with an air date is called The Fox's Lair, and it's episode 8.
Okay. Well, they're back in Scotland for that, probably, right?
It seems they would have to be.
Because the fox is Simon. It's Simon
Lovett, yeah. But that means that they're going to go to. They're going to go to Bewley before they go to. They'll go to Bewley before they go to Lollybrock?
What's the one before that? It's
called Faith.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the baby, yeah, so...
Huh. So that's got to be the whole losing the baby and the whole visit to Louis and...
Yeah. Oh, God.
They're doing the Star Chamber because I saw they showed us the set for it.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. Okay, so... Would they go straight to Simon? I don't know why they wouldn't.
I don't know.
In the Rising, and they don't, they get dragged into the Rising. So
it shows Jeannie kissing him, I believe, in one of the trailers. I wonder if in Lollybrock on the way to Lovett's area
from Edinburgh, it was.
So I wonder if they swing through Lollybrock and that's just not going to be a big, huge, show, part of the show, and then they're going to go straight into the war effort.
Well, I was going to say, the Fox's Lair, and the episode after that is Je suis prêt. And the episode after that is Preston Pans.
Oh, wow.
So...
Yeah, oh well. Don't know how they're going to sort that out then.
Je suis prêt, I keep thinking has to do with them finding out that Jamie's name has been signed to that declaration.
Well, maybe they're going to move the Fox thing, Simon Fraser's thing forward, and make that as part of Jamie's deception, carrying through that he's a Jacobite by trying to convince his grandfather, and then letting that all go, whether he goes or not, and then pulls back. But it seems like they didn't bring Simon in until after Preston Pans.
That's what I thought too. I thought Jamie already knew at that point that his name had been signed.
Maybe the Fox's Lair means something else.
I don't know.
It doesn't involve his grandfather. I don't know. Book spoilers.
And are they going to show Colum and Dougal in France? Because it didn't. I mean, this is where Colum dies.
Wasn't in France. It was just Dougal.
Dougal was in France. Colum's in Edinburgh.
Colin comes to Edinburgh because that's where he dies.
Okay, that's right.
That's
right.
After Preston Pans.
So I wonder if we're going to get Dougal.
We might.
I don't know why they wouldn't take advantage of being able to use Graham McTavish as soon as they could.
Yeah. He might show up in Paris still. That'll be interesting.
So, listen, I was listening to the Dragonfly and Amber seminar that Alistair Stevens does for the guy from the Scott and the Sassenach. I completely didn't even think about the fact at the end of Dragonfly and Amber that when Colin dies,
Yeah.
Alistair said he assumed, and he assumed that everybody else assumed the same thing, and he assumed everybody knew it, that Dougal kills Colum.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't really assume it, but I could see where it was a plot that Colum told Dougal that he was not going to support the Jacobites.
Support the Jacobites, and
Right.
Dougal killed him for it.
Because Jamie leaves Colum with the thought, well, you make up your mind, but this is what I think, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Dougal kills him for it. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, they don't really make that that's going to be a cool one.
See, I just assumed that his disease took its toll because Claire had mentioned that he had gotten so much worse.
Yeah, and that he didn't have long, and he knew it too. So he even remember he asked. I'll go with that because he asked Claire for whatever it was that Gillis used to kill her husband.
But
it was untouched.
Saying that he did not use that.
But he didn't use it, and so it's assumed he died of natural causes. But
except when they describe his body, don't they describe him with his mouth open and his eyes wide open?
Oh, maybe. I have to look. So there.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I could see that Dougal. I never really pursued that, but yeah, I could see that.
Which could be Dougal smothering him with a pillow.
Yeah. How would you know? You wouldn't know. So.
Not at that time. So.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting if they go that route.
Well, and then somebody also brought up the fact that Dougal is killed with his own dirk.
Right.
The dirk that he swore his allegiance to Colum on, and say something about that.
No, may this holy iron.
This holy iron. Should I ever do something? May this holy iron pierce my heart.
There you go.
And he is stabbed. You know, he gets it through here.
Yeah, so we don't think enough about this book, do we?
Obviously not. That's why I'm like, oh man,
there's something else.
So.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
So there you go. Yeah, may this holy iron pierce my heart or whatever. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So that's. I mean, I can't see them not playing that. That would be such a juicy scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they pulled that out too, or if Diana pointed it out to them. Of course, these guys, I don't know. I give these showrunners a lot of credit because they see a lot of stuff. You know, and you know, we've talked about symbolism and stuff that I don't even see, but these people, that's their living.
Yeah.
So they find all that stuff, and they're connecting all the dots, and they're laying the path forward. And you know, what were we just saying? We were saying earlier in the no spoiler something about something is going to affect, you know, 5 books on or 4 books on or something. I'm trying to think of what we were talking about, but it is. It's something that gets done here, and yet 3 or 4 books down the road, you know, oh, there it is, you know, again. You know, and I know the Murtaugh thing is one good one. So
anyway, I can see that, and I can't decide where they're going to do Falkirk, because there's no way they're not going to do the Rupert scene.
Right, they've got to do the Rupert scene. So somehow they have to end up, she has to end up, or somehow they have to end up with the Duke. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly how played out in the book, but somehow.
Well, I'm wondering if that is in the Vengeance is Mine episode.
Maybe.
Because Preston Pans is where we're going to get
John.
Where we're going to get John Gray.
Yeah.
Vengeance is Mine is, I think, where we're going to get Dougal or Murtaugh and the Duke. But it could also be where we get them before the Battle of Falkirk in that Kirk, where they let Claire go off with the English.
Right, to save themselves.
Except that that's a big convoluted.
But I mean, they kind of have to follow.
They're going to have to simplify and shorten that if that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, they have to follow the timeline of what actually happened during the Rising. I mean, I can't imagine that they're not gonna. They don't have to follow Diana's timeline for how she wrote her other parts, but we do need to bring in the timeline of what the battles from the Rising and everything. So. Yeah,
well, the only thing that we have written down in actual, as far as we know when it's happening, is Preston Pans, because that is an episode.
And that is like the first battle that they participate in. So.
Yeah.
But then the last 2 episodes, one is called the Hail Mary, and, well, Vengeance is Mine is the episode Diana wrote.
Okay.
So, and then the Hail Mary is episode 12, and Dragonfly and Amber is episode 13.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting. I don't know.
I'm telling you right now, when she gets sent back through the stones, when she drops through those stones and she opens her eyes again, she's going to have grown Bree and Roger in front of her. I think that's how they'll do that, because of the fact that Tobias Menzies says we're not going to see Frank anymore this season.
Huh. Yeah, but he could be throwing you a curveball too.
Well,
maybe not.
I mean, they said he did. That was not an equivocation. He said, nope, no more Frank this season.
Okay, so it's all going to be Blackjack this season.
Blackjack.
So
yeah.
we won't see that scene of Claire having the breakdown over the dinner party in Boston, and we won't see them having the fight and Frank leaving.
We don't see any more Frank this season.
Oh yeah, but because all that
stuff is in Voyager.
Oh,
Voyager.
Man, it's been a long time. I've got to
go back.
all
that's in Voyager. That's why I personally was hoping they'd pull all that to this and run a parallel scene of her, her growing pregnancy in the modern world with Brianna, and not tell us anything, but just kind of show it along with her pregnancy in the past. Just get glimpses so that those two storylines run in parallel.
Well, except the storylines that run in parallel are what's happening to Jamie and what's happening.
Yeah, that's timeline-wise. Yeah, year-wise, that's what happens in the next book. But I was hoping subject-wise of her going through 2 pregnancies. I was hoping that they'd just go ahead and bring all that forward.
Yeah, but they'd have to take so much away from this season because they only have 13 episodes.
Yeah, that's true. They're only going to have 13 next season too, so unless they split it in 2.
Well, like I said, that's why I think Voyager needs to be 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Because
that's going to be a lot.
That book could definitely work as a season. If you could spend 13 episodes getting Claire's story in modern time and Jamie's story following
as the years progress. Yeah.
And then
there's so much. I mean, if you read Voyager, I just went back through it quickly, and there's so much of the story that can be cut down because her stuff is so small. I mean, it's like snapshots, and his is kind of too, but not really, and it jumps years. And I bet you they could get through the first half of Voyager in 2 to 3 episodes.
Oh,
I think they could. I really do, because you just have to establish a few things. You have to establish that he lived. You have to establish the Dunbonnet, the whole Dunbonnet and giving himself to the English. You have to establish the stuff that happened at Ardsmuir, and you have to establish young Willie, and that's it. And you could knock all that out. They could do all that in 2 to 3 episodes, I think.
Oh, that just makes my stomach hurt to think that they might cut.
I'm thinking about all that
to shreds
with John Gray and.
But so he becomes friends. I mean, they could do Ardsmuir with John Gray, and they become friends. They play chess, and they don't really give you a lot of. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. Not that, I mean, it's a big deal, but we can't, they're not going to want to keep Claire and Jamie apart for more than a couple episodes. I guess I should start it with that.
Yeah.
Characters are not going to want to keep physically apart for more than 3 episodes. I think that's about all the audience will stand for.
Although Ron Moore's love of Frank, I could see him wanting to devote an entire frickin' season to Claire and Frank.
Yeah, but he's not going to be able to sympathize Frank because it only goes downhill from now. We all know that. Unless he's going to make Frank into this perfect saint.
Well, he was a lot more understanding in the last episode, in the first episode, than what I ever thought that they would make him.
And then that's fine if they want to swing it around to Frank's actually the good guy. And Claire's the evil, cheating whore. So I don't.
But so if they condense Ardsmuir, we have to be able to get where he breaks out, where the man dies,
Yeah,
and tells him where the stones and things are, and then because that's a 2 or 3 day thing there.
But you know that story was told in 2 different sections, because there's, he disappears, he breaks out, or he gets the information from Duncan Care.
Mm-hmm.
Then he breaks out, and then he gets found. And that's all you know in Voyager. It's not until he relates it to Claire later what he did while he was out for 2 days.
That's true.
So either they can just show it, but it's kind of a cliffhanger in some ways, because what was he doing? Nobody really knows until he just gives that stone to John Gray and says, I found a treasure, but it wasn't the gold, it wasn't the French gold. I mean, we're going to read this book next, right? This is my favorite book.
Yeah,
so.
My favorite book too. I can't wait, but I'm just thinking about how breathless I felt in the second half of this book, because the first half of the book is a little slow for me.
Oh.
Just because they're apart,
Yeah.
And
well, anytime Frank is in the forefront, I'm bored.
And there's also, if you think about it, I think there's an awful lot of Brianna and Roger.
Yeah, that's right, because they're doing it.
Book. So
yeah,
it's not until, and there's stuff about Claire setting herself up to be able to leave, and the whole thing about the reason that she's on holiday from the hospital is because she helped a man end his life, and they had to, and they were establishing her good friend, what the hell is his name?
Abernathy.
Yes. That she was good friends with him, because that becomes important in
later in the same book. But that's why I thought they might strip some of that of her and Frank in the years between, when her 20 years of her and Frank with the baby and raising Brianna. I was hoping they'd strip some of that out and bring it forward so that they could spend more time next season with the search, basically, of her in the modern time with Brianna and Roger. And then as they uncover stuff, go to Jamie's side of the story. And not have to keep going back to Frank. Or some of it anyway. Maybe not all of it, but some of that I thought they might strip out and bring forward to kind of make the first part of Voyager be about Jamie's journey.
Yeah, I couldn't see them doing that. I was really hoping they wouldn't do that, because I felt like it was going to shortchange Dragonfly. It was going to shortchange a lot of the story from Dragonfly.
That's probably true too. I mean, you're right. I can see
Dragonfly is complicated enough. Trying to adapt it, I can't imagine trying to pull in stuff from the third book into it and make it a coherent storyline that people who haven't read the books can follow.
Right. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I'm not saying it had to be that way. I just thought, maybe they would, just to kind of make it easier further down. I mean, like I said, I think these guys, they know what they're doing. They love these books, and they're doing it right. Whatever they're doing, I'm good with whatever they're doing. It's just, as a book reader, as we are, it's like, well, what are they going to do with this? Where is this going to go?
Yeah. I want to see a Frank. I want to see Claire struggle as a mother to a young child and being at the hospital. And then I want to see Frank having multiple affairs. I mean, I literally don't want to see it, but I want to see that brought to a forefront. And then I want to see him storming off and her in the ER. And those 3 things are really all I care to see about him.
Right. Her struggle to get through medical school. Yeah. I think, it's a very big story there, too. So.
Yeah.
Her going to medical school is huge. I mean, they can't. I'm really going to hate it if they just gloss over that and say, "Oh, poof, Claire's a doctor."
No, because there's a whole big sympathetic Frank thing there, so they're not going to gloss over that. Because look how generous he is to say, "No, I'll care for my child that I insisted on raising, so that you can go to school even though I don't like it." I can't stop you, so.
But I think it's just his honor. I don't think that he was just that good of a person. I think it was just his honor, as
He even says that to her. He says, "I don't want you to do it, but I can't stop you.
Yeah.
So I'll take care of my child instead and make sure that she's not damaged."
Yeah.
It doesn't. But I mean, they could make it such a wonderful thing, lovely.
Oh my Lord.
Anyway. Yeah.
I think he was having affairs on her back during the war, and that's the reason that he naturally assumed the Scottish guy looking up in the window was somebody looking for her, and yeah, he's a rascal. He's not far from Blackjack.
Not as far as he would like to think, right?
Yeah.
Well, except when you think about it, if they're not, or we find out that he's not as direct a descendant of Blackjack as everybody's thinking he is. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, ladies, we've been at this for like 2 hours.
We're gonna suck up all the megabytes on YouTube.
It's
we may systematically crash Google.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to figure out some way to shorten this stuff down.
Well, that's funny. An hour and a half, or hour and 45 on a 1 hour show. I think we're invested much, yes.
Yeah, well, and think about it, if we had more than just the 3 or 4 of us who show up.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to have 6 people in here saying something. So.
Yep.
So, all right, well, I'm going to stop the broadcast, and we will see everybody next week when we'll be discussing useful occupations and deception.
Yeah. We may not need a spoiler section.
Yeah.
Too bad anyway.
All right, bye guys, next week.
Okay.